pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. If we'd have approval of the city commission meeting minutes for the regular city commission meeting of September 23rd, 2024 and October 1st, 2024.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Hudak, seconded by Commissioner Parnas. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed. Acknowledgement of our city board meeting minutes, our community appearance board meetings of August 15th and August 29th, and our African American Heritage Board meeting minutes of July 11th, 2024.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Hudak, seconded by Commissioner Preston. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed. Approval of our agenda tonight for October 15th, 2024.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Preston, seconded by Commissioner Parnas. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Madam Clerk.
For those attending via Zoom online, wishing to speak under public comment or on an item that's open for public input, please click raise hand at the bottom under the reactions tab, and your audio will be unmuted when you are recognized by Mayor Gantz. For those attending via Zoom by telephone, please press *9 to raise your hand, and your audio will be unmuted when you are recognized by Mayor Gantz. Please make sure your audio is unmuted on your end by pressing *6. Thank you.
Thank you.
The first item is a presentation by the Jim and Jan Moran Boys and Girls Club regarding the 25th annual Lights on After School event.
Good afternoon or good evening. My name is Nicole Carter. I'm a director for the Boys and Girls Club.
I'm Jessica Nicholas. I am the program manager at the Moran unit located in Deerfield.
And I'm Danny Ramirez. I'm the youth development coordinator at the Jim and Jan Moran unit.
Good evening. Today is just a day for us to come out to make you aware of Lights On After School. In America, 7.6 million children are left alone and unsupervised after school. After-school program is a critical role to keeping kids safe, supporting working families, and fostering learning. One of the things that we want to make you aware of is to keep the lights on after-school programs, not only at the Boys and Girls Club in Broward County, the one in Deerfield, but for all after-school programs throughout Deerfield Beach. Lights on after school is very important to keeping our youth and something that's developing them, keeping them out of trouble, keeping them engaged, and preparing them to continue through high school or through a trade or through college. So that is our main goal today. I'm going to turn it over to Jessica, and she's going to talk more about Jim and Jan Moran.
So as stated, I'm Jessica Nicholas. I am the program manager at the Jim and Jan Moran unit located at 27 South Dixie Highway. Right now, our Boys and Girls Club, we are hosting about 230 members. Our members range from 6 years old all the way to 18. Our campus right now has 2 units. So we have a main campus, which is our campus for our 6 through 12, and then we also have a teen center that, as well, like you said, is our teen center, is our ages 13 to 18, rolling over 19 depending on their birthday falls. But I feel like our purpose tonight is just, shining light on our Boys and Girls Club and getting your support moving forward after this meeting, just to, build that partnership with the city of Deerfield, as well as many other local organizations here located in Deerfield. And yeah, Coach Daniel.
Yeah, I just want to add, you can notice because of my accent, I was born in Mexico. So I came here to the States because I came for swimming in college for swimming. So I got a scholarship. So what better way for me to give back to this amazing country that gave so many and opened so many doors for me. So I've been with these organizations for like 4 months now. So my mission is to give back to this amazing country and this amazing community. And so I might come from another country, but I want to give back to this community that opened so many doors for me.
Okay, at this time, we just have a little token to give to you, just remembering. Lights on After School official date is actually October 24th. We would like to invite you out to our club on that day. If you're available, we'll be hosting an event that evening. And that is the official celebration nationwide for Lights on After School. So at this time, we just got a little something that you could put on your desk. Also, you can eat it also. But it's just to let you know to keep the lights on after school when you think about us on that day. Jessica, she's giving out the little tokens, but she wants to tell you about her event on October 24th.
So yes, as stated, on October 24th is the actual Lights on After School recognition day. Our club will be hosting just a Lights on After School event, and like she said, I would like to invite each and one of you guys out just to highlight some of our different area programs that we do have in the club, as well as our teen center. Like I said, right now we're hosting about 230 kids on average, and most of our kids are bused in through a busing contract that we do have. So I want to share, a piece of our, journey each and every day with our kids, day in, day out. Our after school program is not just, keeping those kids safe, but also giving them a safe space where they can learn, life skills, soft skills, team building, different things like that. But as you see, since Coach Daniel's been here and since as myself, I'm going on 3 years with the organization, that you see the kids coming in and that this is their second home. We're the middle place where, we're not home, but we're not school, but they can come in where, just being themselves and they can also stride and succeed in life. So thank you.
Thank you so much. We are extremely lucky to have the Jim and Jan Moran Boys and Girls Club here in the city of Deerfield Beach. They do phenomenal work, and it's a wonderful partnership we have. So thank you so much for all you do. Absolutely. Be happy to.
Okay, item number 2 is a proclamation presented to the Department of Information Technology in recognition of Cybersecurity Awareness Month.
So I know Commissioner Preston will get excited when I say phishing, but that's not the type of phishing that I'm talking about. A phishing attack in which carefully targeted digital messages are transmitted to fool people into clicking on a link that can install malware or expose sensitive data are becoming more sophisticated. Ransomware attacks are believed to cost victims billions of dollars every year as hackers deploy technologies to kidnap databases and hold individuals ransom. Weak passwords are a common entry point for computer takeovers and resulting in compromised systems and theft of private information. The city of Deerfield Beach, Florida is calling upon each citizen and business to help educate themselves and others by learning and practicing password and internet safety measures and becoming more aware of the need to play a more active role in securing the internet. Now, therefore, I, Bill Gans, the mayor of the city of Deerfield Beach, in recognition thereof, do hereby proclaim October as Cybersecurity Month. And maybe all of us should go home tonight and change our password. Yeah, I know. You guys are big silent. Thank you.
Item number 3 is a presentation on the status of the fiscal year 2024 initiatives and considerations.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Commissioners. Horace McHugh, Interim City Manager. This item today is a brief snapshot to dashboard to provide you with some of the initiative and activities that were accomplished during last fiscal year. One of the questions that we heard during the budget presentation or the budget workshop was that we provide the direction, we provide information, we provide budget, and we don't know what happened to the project. So this is a brief overview in a snapshot dashboard format. Some of the things we have been consistently providing you with updates. About 2 months ago, 6 weeks to 2 months ago, our Priscilla, our Environmental Services Director, provided you with an update on capital projects. But this essentially gives you an idea of projects and activities that have been completed, those that were delayed or are incomplete, discontinued, one purpose or another, and those are still in progress. For example, some of those that have been completed, the pay and class project, the evaluation and the negotiation with our labor negotiation, labor unions. We have 2 labor unions. Redistricting, which wasn't even one of the initiatives which we did during the year. The ITN for the Pier restaurant. So there are a couple of things that are here, and there are notes as it relates to all of these. There are things that are a little bit delayed, but still moving forward. And some of those include activities that would require permitting. The Pier is a good example. We'll provide you an update on that, and we'll provide you another update later on today. So this is a brief overview. And if there are specific questions, we wouldn't necessarily take a lot of time to go through all of these, but if there's specific questions, I'd be happy to either respond to it or have one of the directors address them.
Thank you. The only question I have, and I haven't seen it yet, and I spoke to you earlier today about it, is the progress on the Hillsborough Boulevard median on the west portion of Hillsborough. The condition of it right now looks terrible, and I'm curious to know where we're at with that. Do we know?
Yeah, that's one of those that we required approval. I think it was from FDOT or another agency. Once you mentioned that to us, we're being diligent in terms of addressing the maintenance of it, because although we're waiting for the planting and the installation and that we can still address the maintenance while we're waiting.
What are we waiting for at this point?
Let me see if Parks is here.
Okay. If Parks get back to me by end of day tomorrow, where we're at with it and what the holdup is and why it's in the condition it's in.
We'll let you know
Appreciate
by
it.
end of day tomorrow.
Thank you. Commissioner Hudak?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The amount of projects that you're presenting are voluminous. And it's a testament to, trying to keep everything, in line and keep everything on track. And I really do appreciate that. I know there's a lot of irons in the fire. And I know that, staff works diligently in order to keep these projects on task, on budget. But all too often, these projects have unforeseen delays. All too often, these projects go over budget. And that's something that we really need to address. When a project starts, all of a sudden there's a change order that adds $700,000 to the project. And I'm just hoping that we can do a better job of due diligence. As you know, the stormwater project has been a fiasco. I understand the challenge with Fifth Court, but there's no way that should have been like that for 6 months. There's a book called How Big Things Get Done, and it's a great book, and I'm really recommending that all of our leaders in the city read that book. And not only read that book, but maybe you have biweekly meetings on what they've learned from that book. It talks about prior planning. I understand we did the underground radar over on Fifth Court, and it can't pick up all of the challenges there. But again, there's no way that project should be delayed, and those residents should be stuck looking at that eyesore for 6 months. At our October 7th meeting, we had a lot of residents here, and one of the complaints was diesel fuel leaking from a tank and it not being cleaned up. Yesterday, I got an email from that same resident, who happens to be a friend of mine, that the diesel fuel still wasn't cleaned. Now, from what I understand, the tank itself has been repaired, and the leak comes from when they transfer the diesel fuel from the tank to the machinery. But still, there's got to be a lot more oversight and a lot more diligence on these projects. They're all going over budget. There's always unforeseen circumstances. But I think we really need to look at the experience of the contractor, in the same weight that we look at the cost. If the cost and the experience is the same, I understand going with the cost. But if you got a low-cost bidder coming in that has never done this type of project, I think they need to be disqualified. And I'm not talking about Fifth Avenue. I understand they've got plenty of experience in Miami-Dade, not so much in Broward County. But still, I think that these projects need to be vetted a lot more so that these cost overruns, these time overruns are vastly reduced. So I have the copy of the book here if you want to see it and take a photo of it, but I highly recommend that your leadership team reads it and have a bi-weekly meeting on what they've learned, what we can improve. I'd really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Preston.
Yes, Mayor. You asked earlier if someone from Parks and Rec could answer your question. I'm noticing that I think Mr. Warner is on. I would,
Okay.
he possibly can answer that question for you. I'd like to hear that.
Thank you. Mr. Warner?
Yes, Greg Warner, Director of Parks and Recreation, Mayor, members of the commission. So the median project on the west end of West Hillsborough, that is still part of the project. And the reason that it's in the condition it is right now, we're in the process of doing one additional directional bore because we need to run irrigation to that area. So that has not been maintained. I'll have staff clean that up a little bit tomorrow for visual purposes. But once that directional bore, once we're just waiting on a permit to do that directional bore, once that's done, the water meter can be installed. And then once that irrigation is there, they'll be able to finish up that section of the median project.
Thank you. If you look at the entranceway into Deerfield from that west side, and you look at our entrance sign, you'll see exactly what my point is. So if they can clean that up first, that would be great.
Definitely. We'll take care of that first thing tomorrow.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Yeah.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Item number 4 is a presentation regarding the downtown Deerfield redevelopment master plan.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and members of City Commission. My name is Chris Morey, Director of Economic Development. Although I'm giving this presentation tonight, I just want to start off by letting you know that this project that we're talking about is truly a multidisciplinary project. And, almost every department in the city is really touched by this project. So without further ado, I would please go to the, here we go. I'll let you know that a lot of hands went into this project. So what we're going to do tonight, just briefly, is go over the background of this project, of the downtown Deerfield project, remind the commission of the strategic vision for the area, talk about a timeline, both the recent past and the future, and then talk about next steps and get some direction on how to move this project forward. In this picture, we put up some pictures just representative of a city hall complex, an active downtown with a community gathering space. And, that's there to remind you about some of the themes that came out of some of our most recent planning initiatives. So, not to go back too far into the future, or into the past, excuse me, but it's really important to point out, not just for the commission, but for the public, the time and effort that's gone into planning leading up to where we are today. You know, the city has gone to great lengths to collect public input along the way for each of these plans that have been a part of the puzzle, you know, to create the whole redevelopment vision for the area. And taken together, all of these plans have created a roadmap for redevelopment and area improvements in the, not just the central city area, the Pioneer Grove area, and of course, downtown Deerfield plays a very important part of that role. The one theme of all of these plans is, again, how big of a role an active downtown plays in redevelopment. So, as you know, I like to do, we like to go from planning to implementation. And so here we go in terms of implementation. Now, we know we have all of the plans in the past, but we have some plans that are still going on today. We have the Public Safety Master Plan, you have the Strategic Comprehensive Plan, and we have the Parks Master Plan that are all coming together and again, focusing on the role of downtown Deerfield. As you know, one of the foundings from the Public Safety Master Plan is pointing to the fact that the BSO station does no longer needs to be here. City Hall is not meeting its current needs and certainly is not big enough for future needs. And of course, we're looking for things to do to redevelop the central city area and the Pioneer Grove area as well. All of that, again, is leading to downtown Deerfield. So in terms of implementation, you can already see some of the things that are in play. And, you know, we were just talking about projects in the city, and here are some more projects. And, you know, again, in the area around City Hall, Pioneer Park, and the BSO headquarters, there's a lot going on, and you can see it. Right now, we're installing, you know, recently, we've completed the dock replacement at Pioneer Park. Ongoing is the Pioneer Village Streetscape Improvement Project, the Pioneer Grove Waterline Improvement Project, which is very visible to anybody who tried to park in the parking lot tonight. The drainage improvements, and of course, most recently, City Hall hardening. So again, to revisit the idea or, you know, the strategic vision that the City Commission and the community have created along the way. What are we looking for in downtown Deerfield? First and foremost, you know, beyond the function of the facilities that are here, one, we want to activate the central city area in Pioneer Grove. I can't emphasize that enough. But we want to create a walkable downtown and connectivity to the neighborhoods and other amenities in the area. We want to protect the current neighborhood quality of life. Whatever we do here needs to be specifically and characteristically Deerfield. We want to be Deerfield and we don't want to be anyone else. So it has to be something that's proper for us. Of course, we want to create an economic engine to be a catalyst to boost the local economy while increasing green space, activating the waterfront area that's not often seen by the public, looking at multimodal options, getting away from cars and coming up with new solutions while creating new housing, a variety of housing opportunities for the area. Of course, creating a destination and a distinct district. You know, this district has a great opportunity to really focus on the historical, cultural, and arts aspect of the community, connecting the Historic Society, many of the historic sites around City Hall and Pioneer Park, and then moving into the neighborhood for the Cultural Arts District. And so I bring back this map to show you, again, in terms of implementation, how much is already going on, and sometimes we lose track of that. So highlighted in yellow towards the upper right-hand corner of this is the downtown Deerfield study area. And all of the blue pegs on this map are private investment. And one of the things, you know, that we talk about is looking for ways that the city can make investments to encourage that private investment. And those blue dots on this map are encouraging. But one thing I want to point out too is downtown Deerfield is not an island unto itself. One of our big goals is to increase connectivity between downtown Deerfield and the surrounding neighborhoods. So on this map, you see the orange line from right to left along Eller Drive. Our goal is to make downtown someplace that people want to walk to and walk from to connect to the neighborhoods. And same thing, not just east-west, but north-south for a future commuter rail station to make this a truly walkable area. Not sure why it's not really advancing like I wanted it to, I'm sorry. But anyway, so in this slide, I wanted to take you through some of the more recent history of the project. Starting back in April of this year, we brought the Urban Land Institute and we had a seminar for the commission and to talk about density issues in the area and how, some strategies to dealing with density as projects come forward. We then in May, we did a municipal assessment of City Hall itself and all of our city facilities in terms of the space needs that are required for the city in 2024 and 50 years in the future. We brought ULI back again in June to do a technical assistance panel studying downtown Deerfield. But before the panelists got here, we did a city survey and we had 800 people participate in that survey, providing much needed information and public input about their vision for downtown Deerfield. That I'm going to come back to that again, but what we found through that survey in particular is that that's a way for us to really collect input from what we know is the silent majority in Deerfield Beach, the people that aren't active and don't come out to public meetings. And then in September, of course, we had, here's my road that I wanted. And then of course, in September, we had the final ULI report. So before we move on to next steps, right now what we have is a series of recommendations from ULI, a very talented group of people about what they think about Deerfield Beach. And what they think about Deerfield Beach, their engagements or their recommendations, number one, like it was very loud, very clear, was to continue to engage the community and solicit additional input about downtown Deerfield. Continue with the infrastructure projects, those things that are the foundation of future abilities to serve the area. Specifically focusing on restaurants, entertainment, housing, and recreation as part of a healthy downtown. Identifying sites for private development adjacent to city-owned assets, and then establishing a request for proposals process for engaging a master planner. Now that was what ULI said, but let's focus on, I think, probably the most important recommendation from that study, which was go back and engage the community. One of our strategies for doing that is what we call meet them where they are. And that was planned to be, last weekend at Fall Festival. And, because that was canceled, we're going to have to do, we'll do it at Ocean Way Holiday. But anytime there's a public event in Deerfield Beach, we'll be out there talking to our residents, doing in-person surveys and that kind of thing. We're also planning on holding additional community meetings in the month of November to keep that conversation rolling. And as I mentioned before, all of this will be supplemented with online surveys and questionnaires, again, to continue to try to collect the input from the silent majority that use our facilities, use City Hall on a daily basis, use the park facility, come to downtown to eat, and people that we want to have come here more often in the future. And then one thing too that, we hear loud and clear is to keep a good line of communication with the City Commission about where this project stands and to keep getting feedback and input from you all. So if, and based on what that input is, when we go back and engage the community, if so desired, we'll come back to you and we'll talk about the next steps. And again, in the ULI report, they talked about a RFP process where we would establish criteria for moving forward. What do we want to see in a good downtown? What do we want to see if we want to go after a master planner to help us plan the area? What do we want to see? You were talking about the criteria for contractors. So here we go. We want to work with people that have proven successful records from before. Are they financially sound? Those kind of things. And we'll come back to the City Commission to talk in more detail about those criteria. But I think whatever model we move forward with, we want to have those criteria clearly stated before we move forward so we can make sure everyone's on board. And then I will not go into the rest of the process, but just, it's important for City Commission to know that if we decide to move forward with a master planning process, we have it well thought out, step by step, on how we would take the city through that process to come out with a successful master plan for the downtown Deerfield area. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Hudak?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think this is extremely important. This is probably one of the most important things that we've got to accomplish in the next couple of years. I don't know if anybody's heard of the city in Canty, or Fort Van Swearing, or Aberdeen, or Gomez, or Jupiter Station, or Yamato. Those are cities that are no longer in existence. Those cities were in all Palm Beach County, and they're no longer there. Why? Because they looked at the here and now, and they didn't look at the future. I'm glad we're looking at the future. I hear people saying, well, Deerfield Beach doesn't know who they are. We don't want to be Pompano. We don't want to be Delray. We don't want to be Boca. We don't want to be Fort Lauderdale. But we're in competition with those cities. The Miami Dolphins don't want to be the Baltimore Ravens, but they're in competition with them. They have a different way of achieving the goals that they're trying to achieve as a team. We need to do the same thing as a city. And we have assets that those other cities don't have. We've got the Breakaway Center of Activation. We've got the Belsos Academy. We've got the Sawgrass to Seagrass Center. Now, we've got the Museum of Discovery and Science partnering with them. We've partnered with Belsos. We've partnered with the Boys and Girls Club. You know, we are very fortunate to have JM Family as our corporate headquarters. I know that each one of us has said this on more than one occasion. We have to be able to attract those types of organizations that share our values. Our city does not want to have skyscrapers. Those things that I mentioned are things that our city gives back to the community. Whether it's the Belsos Academy with free tuition, whether it's the Center for Active Aging that also has a memory center. These are things that are valued to our citizens, to us as a city. These are the types of companies that we need to attract to our city so that they support us in the growth, like the Belsos Academy, like the Museum of Discovery and Science. So if you don't think we're in competition with these other cities, I'll bet most of you already know that Pompano has an underwater camera. It's not because they thought it was a great idea, it's because we had one, and they're in competition with us. So we really need to think as a city, as a community, how we beat the competition and have our roadmap. And not Boca's roadmap, not Delray's roadmap, not Pompano's roadmap, but Deerfield's roadmap. When we go to Tallahassee and we tell elected officials in Tallahassee, we're from Deerfield Beach, their first question is, where is Deerfield Beach? We're the 30th largest city in the state of Florida, 87,000 people, and elected officials who do this for a living don't know who we are. We need to set our stamp on what we are going to do in the future so that we don't become Aberdeen or Gomez or Yamato. So I'm glad we're doing this, but I want to make sure that when we vet partners, we vet them in what we are looking for in a community. We're not looking for the Taj Mahal so that they build this huge monstrosity on the beach. We're looking for organizations that give back to the community, like JM Family, that give back to the community, like Belsos Academy. Those are the organizations that we need to target because that's how we have to grow our city. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Item number 5 is an ordinance of the City Commission of the City of Deerfield Beach, Florida, adopting the updated 5-year schedule of capital improvements set forth in tables 10.2 and 10.4 in order to update the capital improvements element, CIE, in conformance with section 163.3177 Florida statutes, as more specifically set forth in Exhibit A, providing for conflict severability and an effective date. This is first reading.
City Manager?
This Mayor and Commissioners, this particular item represents a step that needs to be presented and adopted in order to be passed on to the state. Eric, if he would like, Eric, we could ask Eric to give additional information on that.
Hi, Eric Power, Director of Planning Development Service, City of Deerfield Beach. So this is the annual update to the one comprehensive plan item that we are required to do every year. Comprehensive plan is updated every 7 years, except for this particular piece. The item essentially does not change anything to the budget. It simply updates the 5-year comprehensive plan amendment. So it's going from 22 to 27, from 23 to 28. All the information that you approved in your budget is now put into this item that is required to go to the state by the end of every fiscal year. So it is administrative in general, but it does require 2 readings. It also requires planning and zoning board approval. Unfortunately, that meeting had been postponed due to the storm. It's going to be held this Thursday in between the 2 items. Any questions? I'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you. Is there anyone from the public that would care to comment on this item? No, I'm going to close it to the public. Commission?
Motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion from Commissioner Hudak, second by Commissioner Preston. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Hudak,
Yes.
Commissioner Parnas, Commissioner Preston,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Drosky,
Yes.
Mayor Gantz.
Yes.
Item number 6 is an ordinance of the City Commission of the City of Deerfield Beach, Florida, amending Chapter 2 Administration, Article 2 Boards, Committees, Commissions to create Division 4 Charter Review Board, establishing the Charter Review Board membership, powers, and duties, providing for codification, severability, conflicts, and an effective date. This is second reading. This ordinance does reflect the 2 revisions that were approved at first reading of the ordinance. The first one was to provide for each commissioner and the mayor to have 1 regular member appointee and 1 alternate member appointee. And the second one was to provide that every 10 years after the initial board is established, an item will be placed on a city commission agenda to discuss the reappointment of the Charter Review Board. Both of those are reflected in the updated ordinance for second reading. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Commissioner Hudak?
I brought this motion forward, so I guess I'll just, talk a little bit about it. I think it's important that cities stay relevant. The last charter review was done in 2006. So it's time for this generation, as I've said previously, to decide what type of city we want in Deerfield Beach. Again, the charter members do not have the authority or the ability to change the charter. The commission does not have the ability or the authority to change the charter. The voters have the ability only to change the charter. So this item is to make sure that we are following our residents' direction. There may be no changes, and I'm fine with that. That tells me that the previous generation was spot on with the current generation. Or there may be some recommendations that come forth. I don't know. There are no hidden agendas on my part. So, and again, I have no influence on the committee other than I'm going to appoint them. But other than that, this is something for the residents, and it's a tool for the residents to make sure that the city is moving in a direction that they want.
Thank you. Is there anyone from the public that would care to comment on this item?
Dan Hirsch, 330 Southeast 19th Avenue. I would be remiss if I did not welcome the interim city manager, Horace McHugh, to the upfront big boy chair. The commissioners are usually a very harmonious group, almost always getting along, with 5-0 votes the rule rather than the exception. However, this is not the case with this new charter review committee idea. Let me refresh everyone's memory of what the District 4 commissioner said recently about forming a charter review committee, and I want to quote him. "I have a sinking suspicion this may have something to do with removing the height restrictions here in the city, because why else would you want to review the charter? The District 4 Commissioner asks a very good question, of which the taxpayers have not received a satisfactory, truthful answer to. The commissioner who is sponsoring this proposal is the same commissioner who only a short time ago said, we have to do something about the main beach parking lot and have to change with the times. The District 1 Commissioner has a history of doing what developers ask of him. He even called me a developer at last month's commission meeting. He said I ran against him in 2016 when it was actually 19. He said I own a big hotel when all I ever owned was an 8-room motel. And finally, he said, I want to blow my building up so I can increase my profits. Maybe the commissioner hasn't heard that I sold my motel over 5 years ago. So before you all vote on this, it would be very refreshing if the District 1 Commissioner could tell us publicly which developer he is carrying the water bucket for on this Charter Review Committee idea. Thank you.
Thank you.
Daniel Shanetsky, 34 Keswick B, District 3, Deerfield Beach, 33442. Like I said at the October 1st City Commission meeting, I'm strongly in favor of the City Charter Review Board. The City Charter is our local constitution, and I always believe, even on the federal level, that a constitution is living and breathing. Basically, we need to have this review because we need to reflect the current needs and priorities. We need to be able to update and throw away what's inefficient. We need to have citizen participation, and the public will get involved in going over what our recommendation, what the city charter review recommendations are. I think it's important to have transparency and the public input. And also, it's important to have flexibility to adapt to changing environment. And most importantly, I think this would give checks and balances so that no group has disproportionate power. And I want to bring out that Fort Lauderdale has an ongoing charter review board, and they've come out with 11 recommendations that they brought to the public. So I think it's very, very important. I'm strongly in favor of it.
Thank you. Anyone else in the public? Okay, I'm going to close it to the public. Commissioner Parnas, you want to speak? Commissioner, you're muted.
Oh, is that better?
Much.
Okay. A year or so ago, I wanted a third term to be changed in the charter. The commission said, okay, we'll put it on the ballot because that's what happens with changes in the charter. The public voted no, and that ended that. If the public voted yes, we would have changed the charter. The commission and a charter review board can only make recommendations. It's up to the public who live here to decide whether or not our charter should be changed as requested in the ballot amendment. So what's wrong with the committee looking at our charter and making recommendations? It doesn't mean that a single one will be passed. And it doesn't mean that all of them won't be passed. If the commission thinks that the change is worthwhile, it'll go in front of the voters. And the citizens will make that decision. And that's what democracy is all about. And I say we keep that. And fresh ideas and improvisation of ideas is what we need to improve the city. Some will make it, some won't. But then again, the commission doesn't have the power. The committee does, the charter review board doesn't have any power. All they can do is ask the citizens the question and they vote yes or no. What's wrong with that picture?
Thank you. Commissioner Preston?
There's been references to the Constitution of the United States. It must be understood that the Constitution that is there for each and every one of us Americans have been amended. It hasn't been amended once. It has been amended a few times. I think 13. It's been amended, changed, in other words. So when you look at this charter review, I too was very skeptical of this. I had some issues, and I actually said that it could become a political tool with how you might get people to be a part of the review committee. But after thinking about it, I think it probably was the better way for commissioners to appoint a primary and an alternate. Probably it's the fairest way to do it. As my colleague said, if there is change that is recommended, it does not mean that change will be authenticated. It has to go to the voters. That means you. That means you, the resident. The commission can't say yes. The commission can vote to let it go to a referendum, but it is you that ultimately will make the decision about what you want in your city. So that's a good thing. And it's, again, keep in mind that the Constitution of the United States, the way it was written, has not remained that way. It has been amended a few times. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Vice Mayor Drowski?
Thank you. And to my point, Commissioner Preston, the Constitution isn't changed every 10 years. It's not changed every 50 years. It's changed when the people decide that a change is needed. And that has happened multiple times throughout our country's history. And so the Constitution, being the city's charter, likewise can be amended. But I don't see the groundswell of people rushing into the commission chambers saying we need to amend our Constitution, i.e. charter, that there's something wrong with it. There's just not, I don't see that. Commissioner Barnes brought forward the charter amendment with respect to the term limits, and the commission put that on the ballot, and we all know how that turned out. The procedure would be, I think that the way that it would work is actually that the commission appoints the charter review board. The board would make recommendations to the commission, and the commission would decide what goes to the ballot. I don't think the board decides what goes to the
That's
ballot.
correct. That's correct.
So the commission would ultimately do that. So I just don't see the groundswell for change now. If there was, I could be in support of it. I'm okay with the way that the board is set up and the way it's going to be appointed in the process. That's okay. But just the underlying need for it, I don't see it. If people came forward and say, hey, I want to change the height restriction on the beach, then that's something we could consider. But I haven't received those calls yet. So I think it's implementing something that's not needed, but that's just, my opinion on this. So I voted against it on first reading. I thought about it and mulled it over, for second reading. I don't really see anything to change my mind, but I can certainly count votes up here. But that's my opinion on it.
Thank you. I don't have a problem with the changes that were put on there. I think it's a little, I still don't like the fact that, it needs to be reviewed 10 years and put it out as an agenda item, because we won't be up here to remind them to do that. And as the person who's been up here the longest, I am constantly reminding people about our history, where we've been and things we needed to do. So, let's not forget, a lot of this is politically motivated. Sometimes when you see these, I last meeting, and I won't go through repeating it all, but I gave you a history of all the charter reviews we've had on how a lot of them were politically motivated. And the last one that we had was a byproduct of a push by a city government who at the time had a city manager, a mayor, and a few elected officials that were pushing for major overdevelopment of our beach. 150 year, they're going to 150-year lease to a restaurateur to put at the end of our Deerfield Beach Pier. And a lot of the stuff they were doing was without public input. And so the motivation behind the last charter review was to kind of make sure that the residents' desires, which was to limit the height and put limitations on the beach, were in place and that it was ratified. And that's really what this does. It ratifies the public opinion. The public opinion has changed. Well, then it's good for us to review it and make sure that we're keeping with the times and what the people really want, because it's a bold assumption for us to say that we know exactly what every single resident wants. The biggest concern I have when we do this and when it goes out for a vote is that the city, and correct me if I'm wrong, the city doesn't have the ability to strike up a campaign or take a side either way. Is that correct?
Correct, Mayor. The city can only educate. You cannot advocate. You
Right.
cannot spend money or resources advocating as a city.
And in this day and age in which we have so many purveyors of misinformation online who like to they lie through omission. Very simple, very clearly, they lie through omission. And when you have people that do that, it makes it difficult for when you have a public vote on some of these things to go through. It happens. I can see why a failed candidate would fear the public opinion and going to the ballot box on an item, because certainly it told him where he actually stood in this city, which was out there and not up here. So whoever motivation is to get something on the ballot, the one thing that's going to happen is the people are the ones that are going to make that decision for us. So I do fear the misinformation that could be out there, but I also think it's a good thing for us to check the temperature of the citizenry and find out which direction they want to go. So the committee might come up with recommendations that have nothing to do with beach height or anything like that. It could be some very simple things that, quite frankly, just need to be changed because it's catching up with the times. So it's not a bad thing. I'm always suspect of it because I have a long history of it and I've been through it. And that's how I first dipped my toes in the water of getting involved with the city with some of the things that were going on that time period. But I understand, what direction we're going in with this, and I'm fine with it. So thank you.
I do appreciate both of your opinions. And I'd like to make a motion to approve.
Second,
We have a motion from Commissioner Hudak, second by Commissioner Parnas. We have roll call, please.
Commissioner Hudak,
Yes.
Commissioner Parnas,
yes.
Commissioner Preston,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Drosky,
No.
Mayor Gantz.
Yes.
Item number 7 is an ordinance of the City Commission of the City of Deerfield Beach, Florida, amending the City of Deerfield Beach land use plan designation for the city-owned parcel consisting of approximately 1.52 gross acres located at 555 Southwest 3rd Avenue from city conservation to residential medium 16 dwelling units per acre, LUPA number 66A, providing for amendment of the future land use map of the comprehensive plan accordingly, providing for conflict severability and an effective date. This is second reading, and adoption of this ordinance does require a 4/5 vote of the City Commission.
Good evening again, Eric Power, Director of Planning Development Services, City of Deerfield Beach. I'm hopefully remembering that you all remember this particular item. It's been a little bit of time since it came back to you. This is a property that the city owns. It is about a 1.36 acre property that is currently zoned conservation for the city, open space for the county. Just as a quick reminder, conservation is a very old term. It means open space. It does not mean conservation area. I just bring it real quick about that, and that it is being the land use amendment is being amended to what is considered RM 16 residential multifamily, 16 units per acre. That type of land use allows for multifamily properties such as townhomes and villas, does not allow for apartment complex or commercial properties or anything of that nature. And all units on the property are required to meet the affordable housing requirements of Broward County. The next step, so what happened here, that I'm just going to go to the slide real quick just to show you this, just so everyone remembers the property we're talking about. So the property below is the city property, above the city property. If you're driving by it, you wouldn't be able to tell the difference between the city property and the private property. That's the reason why I drew those little boxes there for everybody. But we have owned this land for a very long time. it has been vacant the entire time it's been here. About a year and a half ago, it was a request to bring this item to try to make it available for affordable housing. We have to go through a process with the county and the state for land use amendment and zoning. We talk about it, we go up a ladder and down a ladder, right? We're climbing the ladder through rezoning and land use, and we go to the city, the county, and the state, and then we go back down again. We go from the state to the county to the city. So we are at that point. We're coming back down the ladder, all right? And so the county has approved this item. It comes back to you as a second reading. Then it goes to the state because this is such a small item. It's administrative now with the state. And then it goes back to you for rezoning. So that is the next phase. So at the next commission meeting, we will have the first reading of the rezoning for this process. And then we'll have a second reading, and then we'll be able to move forward. So then it becomes available for actual disposition, maybe for sale from the city, and someone can submit an application. But whoever submits that application for development, again, they must meet the requirements of this type of zoning district, and it must be for affordable housing. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Questions, Commissioner? Commissioner Hudak?
Thank you. So what is the estimated value of this project or this property? I mean, we'll have to go before the voters before a decision is made on if we can actually sell this to whoever the individual is.
The item goes before you. The way the property disposition works in our code is that whoever submits an application must provide an appraisal to the city, and that we do our own independent evaluation appraisal to ensure that those two prices are similar in nature. And that there is either a request to sell, give, or rent the property, right, from the city. And then the commission decides if they want to accept the price, if they want to give it away, if they want to rent it, if they want to sell it, what they want to do it for. The applicant would come forward with those things. But we do an evaluation as required by the code at that time.
Thank you. I'm going to open it to the public. Anyone from the public here to comment on this item? Is anyone online? Okay.
Dan Hirsch, 330 Southeast 19th Avenue. I'm just curious, if this is done, what does the city plan on doing with the money they get from the proceeds of the sale?
Thank you. Anyone else from the public? Yes, former representative.
Gwen Clark Reed, 1430 Southwest 6th Way, Deerfield. In Mr. Powers' presentation, what is the amount of money or the valuation of properties that have to go out for public
Referendum.
having to vote on it, on the sale? What is that, the value of the property? Does the property have to be?
Thank you. Anyone else? No, it's $750,000. Is that correct?
That's correct. I mean, we would estimate that this vacant land at 1.3 acres would be less than that.
Okay, thank you. All right.
Motion to approve.
Second,
We have a motion from Commissioner Preston, second by Commissioner Parnas. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Hudak,
Yes.
Commissioner Parnas,
yes.
Commissioner Preston,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Drosky,
Yes.
Mayor Gans.
Yes.
We are now at public comment. Persons addressing the commission shall state his or her name and address and may speak for 3 minutes unless extended for 1 additional minute by the mayor. This is the time for public comment on items that are not on tonight's agenda. The time for public comment on an item that is on tonight's agenda is after the title is read into the record, and the public comment period for such item is open. No comment shall be made related to the personal life or personal qualities of any person, and no language which would offend persons of ordinary sensibility shall be permitted.
Good afternoon. Sandra Jackson, 386 Southwest 35th Avenue. I only came because I'm kind of concerned. I have a rental property at 648 Northwest Second Terrace. And I get a letter in the mail from code stating that there's bricks in the driveway. I have a rental there that are planning on putting bricks, I guess, down. What I'm concerned about, I get a letter, the same day I get a certified letter. This happened to me before. Okay, I did not sign for this certified letter. So that give me some concern. You know, if we getting certified letters from code enforcement, you know, who's signing for these letters? The bricks are in my driveway, my rental property driveway. The guy that lives there, I didn't know he had them there for one. He's putting the pavers down. And from my understanding, you don't need a permit to put pavers down unless I'm going into the swirl, which he's not. So I'm trying to find out, why did I get this violation, for one? And I'm really concerned about it being certified. And also, they came out on October 4th. I think that's during the hurricane time, but they have me scheduled for a hearing on October 25th. The driveway is my driveway, which there's pavers that stack up that he's gonna put down, make a driveway. And there's no cements, no nothing there. So I'm trying to find out, why did I get a violation? Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone online?
Dan Hers, 330 Southeast 19th Avenue. This October 27th is a historic day in Deerfield Beach. It marks the one-year anniversary of the last day of the lease agreement between the city of Deerfield Beach and Class Act Restaurant Group, or CARG for short. It is astonishing that this small business has had the ability to thwart the city's attempt to evict CARG despite the city's unlimited resources and legal weight. Maybe part of the reason lies in the merits of CARG's lawsuit against the city for all the nefarious actions the city did before the ITN was issued, during the bidding process, and in the awarding of the 20-year sweetheart lease agreement to 202 DFB LLC. Many legal experts, not from Weiss, Sirota, and Hoffman, have reviewed the mountain of evidence against the city of Deerfield Beach and came to the same conclusion: that the city is guilty, and the only questions that really remain are twofold. A, how much will CARG be awarded in damages? And B, will the Broward District Attorney's Office act on the criminal referral that will eventually be sent to their office? It is the taxpayers' conclusion that the city has undertaken a scorched earth posture against CARG due to the rage and insecurities of one elected city official. There is no other explanation for the city's retaliatory actions against CARG every chance they get. Many of these actions have served as further proof to CARG that their allegations against the city are rooted in sound legal theory and fact. The most recent example of this occurred the other day in federal court with Judge Peter Russin. The city's attorney, a Mr. Eric Hickman, stated at multiple times during the proceedings that because CARG had filed a lawsuit against the city, there was absolutely no possible way that the city would ever, under any circumstances, entertain entering into a new lease agreement with CARG for the Pier restaurant. Since we now know that there is a very strong Chinese wall that exists within Weiss, Sirota, and Hoffman, the taxpayers are questioning what information is Mr. Hickman actually filtering back down to the city manager and commissioners. In closing, I would like to quote from a recent Sunday front page Sun Sentinel article about this case. When asked by Sun Sentinel reporter Lisa Hurriash for a quote, Mayor Gans said the following: "Hopefully this case can get resolved quickly and we can begin to move forward with the new tenants. I apologize to the mayor for telling him that this case has already gone on for a whole year, and unless the city wants to enter into settlement negotiations with CARG, this case will go on for a lot longer than just 1 year."
Thank you. Anyone else in the public? Mr. Slattery? I think Mr. Slattery? Mr. Slattery, I don't know if you're muted or not.
Yeah, you'd think I would know how to do that. So John Slattery, 1455 Southeast 5th Place. So the bridge on Northeast 15th Avenue has been closed, I assume, for the demolition, for the work that's to come. And I and some other residents in this area had asked that when this happens, if we could please be mindful of where the detoured traffic is detoured to. And just as we feared has happened in the past, a lot of the traffic is coming down our little roadway that has a blind corner on it and no traffic. I mean, no streetlights. It's a very dangerous road. Last time this happened, 2 of our residents here lost pets, and we almost had a child run down on a bicycle. Well, child was on the bicycle, the person was in a truck. It seems like when people are detoured, they like to make up for the lost time and they drive really fast through this street. So I'm begging at this point, is there something that can be done with some signage or something to, indicate that this is not a through street or something? Because what we homeowners are doing now is we're parking in the street to try to slow down the traffic a little bit. So we're having to take this on our own hands because the city doesn't seem to care to respond in spite of our pleadings. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yeah.
Good evening, Keith Williams, 129 Northeast 6th Court. I'm here tonight because we experienced something today with the water department. Our bill was not due until Thursday, the 17th. So we get up this morning, the water's off. So we were gonna come and pay it, but yesterday was a holiday. I know you guys weren't open, so the water was off. I came this morning at it was around 10:30, 11 o'clock, paid the water bill. 4 o'clock in the afternoon, the water's still not on. Okay. And I'm like, okay, why is this? 4:30 in the afternoon, they come and turn the water back on. So now I'm trying to see, is there something that you guys can do? Because we take care of my father-in-law. He's 90 years old. He's on dialysis. And to be out of water all day from 11 to 4:30, it's like, I don't know. So is there anything that can be done with that, where they can adjust their time frames to when they turn your water on? I know a lot of people are busy and they may not be able to make it on time or what have you, but to leave them out of water all day. And is there something that can be done when they show it to the residents? Can they make contact with the resident to say, hey, we're here to turn your water off? Give them an opportunity to pay it. If they can't get to the water department, can they pay it? Or if not, then they turn the water off. But at least still give them an opportunity to pay the water and not be out of water all day long. Is there something that can be done with that?
Thank you. I do have a question for you, sir. Do you have one of the newer meters at that location?
Yes, they came a
new meter?
couple weeks ago, and they put in a digital meter. They
Okay.
said they switched it out. That was maybe 3 weeks ago.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Anyone else? And close it to the public. Ms. Jackson, I'm sure staff will get with you and explain it to you and find out what it is. Okay. Okay. I don't know who did you call? Okay. Well, we'll have someone here tonight. Mr. Brimlow, I'm sure we'll be able to talk to you about that and get an answer for you. Mr. Slattery, the 15th Avenue Bridge is not closed due to the work that's going to be done. City Manager, can you give us an update on what's going on there?
Yes, an inspection was done after Hurricane Milton, and there were some concerns. We made a request to have it inspected. The inspections was initiated and started this past Monday, and it's ongoing. It should be completed sometime this week. At some point after that, we'll get the report and an update on the conditions, whether it's something that can remain open or should be left closed.
Can you kind of tell us exactly, you said there was some sort of sagging there, or what exactly happened is the damage that's to the bridge?
It's in looking at it visually, there were some concerns expressed by our engineering staff. So we requested our contractor to look at it a little bit more detail, and they have additional assessments that they can do to test it in terms of stress levels and the structural integrity.
Okay, do we have an estimate on how long it's going to take for this test to be done before we can determine whether it's going to reopen?
Already started, we think probably by the end of the week.
Okay, by the end of the week. Can we make sure that we have the right directional signage for that? And if it goes on beyond that, maybe look at putting in some temporary speed
Tables.
tables in that location to slow that down.
Okay.
Because those are very narrow streets with a lot of blind spots over there. We could look at that. Thank you. A question for staff. If we have a shut off and we have the new meters, I thought we could digitally turn it off and on. Am I
No,
wrong on that?
No, we cannot do that with all. And what we actually would encourage, Commissioner, I know people are asking specific questions. I can't speak to the specific instances. If they will call, I know we got a call about this today, and the turn-on crew, they were dealing with a pipe burst. So they got to it eventually. But if people have specific issues regarding their particular situation, like Ms. Jackson, they can call us, and at least we'd be able to have the information in advance for them. I'm not able to give the specifics of the account at this point in time.
Okay. With as much employees as we have, and I think a water turn on is fairly simple. I think we need to have a backup plan to make sure people aren't put in that situation. That we have that so that doesn't occur again. As far as on-site payment to do that, if I remember historically, there were some issues. Of course, that was a long time ago because back then I think it was only checks and cash. So you can imagine how problematic giving cash to someone to say, I'm going to, let me pay my water bill right there. So I don't see that policy necessarily changing despite the fact that we have some abilities to make some changes. But I also think that there could be some, it could be problematic. So, but thank you for bringing that up. We're in the middle of this lawsuit that's going on, and it's amazing that someone seems to have information of all these wrongdoings and all these allegations. The only thing that I can see this irrefutable evidence, so I can't even get my voice that whiny, that we were promised by Mr. Hers regarding this case was that Miss Samana, one of her employees, saw one of the bidders walking out of the only room that they're with the only person during the process they were allowed to have a conversation with, walked out of that room while they were waiting to make their presentation. If Miss Samana had actually been on time to her own presentation and not 20 minutes late, she would have been waiting in that same room as well. This is the big allegation, the big BS that's going to be taken out. I think they called it, they keep saying it's going to be a federal case. I think it's probably because their attorney's probably located on a federal highway and they have no clue what they're talking about. Take a look at the emails. It's like Sybil is writing an email. One day it's congratulations, this is wonderful. The next day we're all criminals. The next day it flips flops back and forth. The only evidence they have is someone watched someone walk out of the room. Here's the evidence we do have that the cone of silence was broken. Miss Samana's emails broke the cone of silence. The other bidder broke the cone of silence. We waived all that and looked at it on the merits of the both considerations. Keep in mind the second person, the second place person, wants nothing to do with this and thinks it's all a joke. And that's what this is. We have a freeloader sitting there rent-free over at our pier, screwing the city of Deerfield Beach citizens out of their money. And I look forward to this being handled in the courts. And I look forward to having a special meeting in which we'll air out all the lies and the BS that has been presented. I look forward to being able to stand up on the merits of our case and clearing our name by the accusations that have no merit. Commissioner Preston?
Yes, concerning the water issue, I have a specific concern with that, and that is that his bill wasn't due until Thursday. And he paid it, but the water was turned off prior to actually when it was due. That's a problem. That's a problem, and that needs to be corrected. His bill wasn't due until Thursday, you said? And you paid it when? He paid it ahead of time and then still was inconvenienced. That's a problem. That's a problem that needs to be taken care of. Okay, you first tell the man that you owe and that you're delinquent when you're actually not delinquent. So he was punished for nothing. Those kinds of issues should not be tolerated. I'm not happy about that at all.
Thank you.
We are now at the consent portion of tonight's agenda. Items 8 through 16 are currently on consent.
Commissioner, any polls on 8 through 16?
13 and 14?
13 and 14? Anyone else? Anyone from the public? We have one. Anyone else online? All right. Okay, we have one. Okay, I'll open it to the public then. Which item, Mr. Hurst?
The first one is number 12, but there's multiple.
That's fine.
So number 12, for full disclosure purposes, I am a member of the Deerfield Beach Historical Society and feel the organization is a shining star here in Deerfield Beach. That is why I am dismayed that the city is only providing $200,000 to the Historical Society for the rehabilitation of the Butler House with strings and contingencies attached. The Butler House and the annex across the street are one of very few reasons to come visit Deerfield Beach besides the beach itself. It draws many annual visitors, and all the programs that I have ever been to are of the highest quality. However, the house is very old, and construction and rehab costs are soaring, as evidenced by the huge cost overruns on the Braithwaite Senior Center and Johnny L. Tigner Community Center. Rather than force the Historical Society to come back and ask for more money down the road, why not give them an extra $100,000 now? And if there is money left over, I feel confident they will return the money to the city. Also, very disturbing is the contingency attached to this $200,000. The Historical Society must get a grant from the state of Florida for $99,487, or the city will not fund the full $200,000. We just saw Governor DeSantis slash millions of dollars from the state budget that was earmarked for the arts. Why play Russian roulette with the Historical Society? I urge the commission to give the Historical Society $300,000 instead of $200,000 and eliminate the contingency that would not allow this wonderful organization to continue their excellent work here in Deerfield Beach.
What's your next item?
Okay, so 13 was pulled, I understand. I just want to make sure.
Go ahead and make your comments now on 13. Yeah.
I can go ahead and do that?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
All right. In looking over the agreement between the city of Deerfield Beach and the IUPAT union, the only thing that comes to mind is penny wise and pound foolish. Let me explain why. The rank and file IUPAT employees are the backbone of the city and make it run efficiently. Many employees have been with the city for a long time, and losing their experience and skill sets would be tragic. It makes sense to keep the IUPAT employees happy and motivated. The problem is this new 3-year agreement does not accomplish this. The grumblings I have heard about how the city is handling the cost of living or COLA increases grows louder by the day. And what is the city really saving by limiting the COLA over the next 3 years for the employees who have maxed out their pay grade? Let's do the math. The 2 union contracts cover approximately 300 employees. About half of the employees have maxed out their pay grade. The average city employee salary is $60,000. So multiplying 150 employees by 60,000 gives you a total salary of maxed out employees equal to $9 million annually. The first year, the city is saving 1% of the COLA increase while saving 2% in years 2 and 3. So over the 3 years, the city is saving $450,000 in salary. Remember, this savings pales when considering the city budget is $360 million. COLA is for cost of living increases. The rationale goes the employees need the full 4% yearly increase just to keep from falling behind due to the ravages of inflation. Is this 1/8 of 1% of the annual city budget really worth having the employees upset the next 3 years? The hypocrisy here is the city recently had no problem giving an extra $12,000 yearly to the commissioners for gasoline expense, or shelling out $10,000 recently so the mayor and vice mayor can have a big evening out on the town at the Broward League of Cities Gala. But when it comes to keeping the city's biggest asset, the IUPAT employees happy and motivated, that's when the city decides to play hardball. Like I said at the beginning, penny wise and pound foolish. I urge the commissioners to give the IUPAT employees their full cost of living increases over the life of this contract, no matter whether they have maxed out of their pay grades or not. Or at the very least, as a sign of solidarity with the IUPAT, the commission should forego your 4% COLA increase as you are asking half of the city employees to do so. Okay, the next one is item number 15, and this is regarding a company called FG Construction. The name FG Construction was very familiar to me because FG Construction was one of the 3 final bidders in the drainage project that I just want to recall that Mayor Ganza said was the worst project in the history of Deerfield Beach. And FG Construction on that contract, they bid 41% more than the winner, Nucor. So it seems to me that now with this contract, FG has learned their lesson. So what they've done with the 5 finalists, with them being the low bidder, is that they bid a dollar amount that was 40% less than the average of the 5 bidders and $1.7 million less than the next lowest bid. So I think we should hopefully have learned our lesson with Nucor that you don't always get what you pay for. So taking the cheapest bidder without fully vetting them and making sure they have experience in doing what they claim they should do is not the right way to go often. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Any other polls from the public? Okay, I'm gonna close it to the public. Just a couple things. Holy cow, what a bunch of crap. Excuse my language. You want to talk about flip-flopping, I think you should be at the beach. To sit here and say that the city of Deerfield Beach should be giving more money to the Historical Society by a person who sat there and criticized us and accused us of giving the $200,000 to be used to purchase the building over there. I'm glad you paid your $10 membership over at the Historical Society and you can act like you're a part of it. You've been fighting against them for years. And cost overruns on the Braithwaite Center, Mr. Hers, and the Tigner Center, when residents say that they want it to be bigger and better or the Bezos Academy comes forward, the project was expanded. That's not a cost overrun. That's an expansion of the project. If you don't understand the difference of that, stay seated. As far as the union goes, this is the same individual who sat there and criticizes when we went out to fight against the pay and class study. And let me remind you, this is a ratification of an item that has been approved by the union. Whoever whined to you must not have voted for it, but the majority did. I know you don't like it when the majority votes against you. As far as the construction project, I would like to know, but what we're doing on that when we get to this on this item, what exactly are we getting with this compared to who's done this other project? I think the issue falls more in the city's project management and probably less with the actual contractor, but I want to make sure that we're not going down a bad path with this one. So city manager, if you can comment on this, I'd appreciate it.
Yes, Commissioner, Mayor, this particular contractor actually did our aquatic center drainage as well as 13th Avenue Bridge. I think he's been vetted and we're comfortable making the recommendation.
Okay, thank you. We have item number 13 and 14 for you, Commissioner. Everything else, we're looking for a motion to approve.
Motion to approve all items except, was it 14 and 15?
13 and 14.
13
right?
and 14.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion, a second. We have roll call, please.
Commissioner Hudak?
Yes.
Commissioner Parnas? He's saying yes. Commissioner Preston?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Drosky?
Yes.
Mayor Gans?
Yes. 13.
Item number 13 is a resolution of the City Commission of the City of Deerfield Beach, Florida, ratifying the collective bargaining agreement between the City of Deerfield Beach and the Local 1010 District Council 78 of the International Union of Painters and Allied Trades, AFL-CIO, in effect from October 1st, 2024 through September 30th, 2027, authorizing the interim city manager to execute the collective bargaining agreement, providing for implementation and an effective date.
Mayor, at the time of the publication of the agenda, this item was not ratified. It has since been ratified by the membership. Just wanted to make that notification.
Thank you. Is that it on that one?
I'm gonna, can you read, do you mind, Mr. City Attorney, reading number 14? Because I really am gonna talk about them together.
Sure. Item number 14 is a resolution of the City Commission of the City of Deerfield Beach, Florida, ratifying the collective bargaining agreement between the City of Deerfield Beach and the Professional Managers and Supervisors Association in effect from October 1st, 2024 through September 30th, 2027, authorizing the interim city manager to execute the collective bargaining agreement, providing for implementation and effective date. We'll need separate votes on each one of those.
So, Mayor, the reason that I pulled these items is they're on consent, but I don't want I don't want it to seem as that this is an easy item or just a rubber stamp. I mean, as you know, when we have our sessions, we have some vigorous discussions regarding these particular items, and it's always a very thin window that we're trying to navigate here, to thread that needle, because on the one hand, you're trying to compensate the employees of our city for doing the job that they did. As Commissioner Hudak put it earlier, we're in competition with our other sister cities around us. So we have to make sure that our wages are competitive, because otherwise they're going to go somewhere else. But you always have to balance that against the folks that are paying those salaries, which are the taxpayers of the city of Deerfield Beach, who are not, for the most part, getting the same raises and COLAs that the city employees are. So you're asking the working men and women of the city to pay wages for city employees to get benefits that they themselves are not getting, and threading that needle as to between how much is too much and how much is not enough is always very difficult. And this is a negotiated collective bargaining agreement. So I will be in favor of it today, but I will tell you, behind the scenes, it was not as easy as it appears. I was initially not in favor of these items because I thought it put too much of the burden on the taxpayers of the city of Deerfield Beach that are paying these wages. But the city and the unions came together and came to an agreement. And so each side has to give a little, and then each side has to take a little in order to come to an agreement. Everybody doesn't get everything in a negotiation. So I want to thank, each side for negotiating in good faith and coming to this agreement. But the reason that I pulled it is to make it very clear that this is not at least for me, this was not as easy as it seems being on a consent agenda.
Thank you. Commissioner Preston?
Thank you, Mayor. Well, I can tell you this, Vice Mayor, it's never easy. When you're spending the people's money, it's never easy. And we ought to really be thrilled to tell each resident in the city of Deerfield Beach that we're in fact saving them money by paying the employees and taking care of them. Because other than that, Deerfield Beach becomes a training ground. They'll keep quiet for a while, they'll learn the trade, and then they'll go and benefit another city. It's a tough situation, but we are saving the people of Deerfield Beach money, because as soon as you hire a new person, that person has to begin the training, man hours from the very start. If we were to look at the people that have left the city of Deerfield Beach and count how much how much money was involved in training, then retraining, then training and retraining, it's astronomical. So it's important that when these negotiations take place, that we let the citizens, our residents, our constituency know that their money is important. But you know what? Because we know that it's important, we're saving you money. Because if people keep leaving, and they will if we're not fair. But if we are fair, they'll continue to do the great job. We tell them that they do a good job. Well, guess what? As a part of it, you know, we have to show appreciation for the great job that they do. And I'm glad that they were able to work this thing out and get it done, because it's not just the ideas of dollars and cents. It's the idea of making sure your employees are happy and that they see a future with you. And the money that we pay them, I can guarantee you, we're not one of those cities that is just wide open purse strings. That's not the city of Deerfield Beach. However, it is important that our employees be shown appreciation and be dealt with in a fair manner, economically or financially.
Thank you. I think I want to thank all parties involved with the union negotiations on that. I'm glad we're able to move forward. I think probably the biggest battles we've ever had is you and me behind the scenes when it comes to union negotiation stuff. So I'm glad to see we've moved forward with this, and looking forward to support it. Okay. We're looking for a motion then on item number 13 and item number 14.
Motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion from Commissioner Parnas, second by Commissioner Preston. Roll call, please.
Mr. Mayor, if you open up to the public, I know we had one member of the public speak during consent, but I don't know if there's anybody else that cared to comment on this item.
Okay.
Well, it was pulled from consent. I know Mr. Hertz was already up there and he made a comment, but I don't know that we opened public comment specifically on these two items other than Mr.
Items
Hertz.
13 or 14. Anyone other than Mr. Hers, who's already shared his opinion, care to comment on this? We'll close it to the public then.
Thank you.
Thank you. Roll call.
Commissioner Hudak,
Yes.
Commissioner Parnas,
Yes.
Commissioner Preston,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Drosky,
Yes.
Mayor Gantz.
Yes.
Now, item number 14 is the PMSA collective bargaining agreement.
Motion to approve.
Second.
I think it was a tie goes to the runner. Motion made by Commissioner Preston, seconded by Commissioner Parnas. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Hudak,
Yes.
Commissioner Parnas,
Yes.
Commissioner Preston,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Drosky,
Yes.
Mayor Gantz.
Yes.
Item number 17 is a resolution of the City Commission of the City of Deerfield Beach, Florida, adopting the sustainability roadmap encompassing a comprehensive initiative to serve as a framework for the city's sustainability program relating to resiliency, sustainability, and a low carbon future within the city, and providing for an effective date.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Commissioners. My name is Hillary Silverstone. I'm the Sustainability Coordinator here with the city. And tonight I'm presenting to you the Sustainability Roadmap for your approval and adoption. Tonight I'm going to talk about sustainability as a whole, program drivers and approach, our greenhouse gas inventories that were completed, and then I'll get into the actual roadmap and some of the strategies that we're proposing. In our strategic plan, we've identified sustainable and eco-friendly environment as a key priority, which focuses on conservation, energy, waste reduction, green infrastructure, and climate change mitigation. So what this roadmap that we're presenting tonight is taking this priority and these goals and helping to implement those. But the real reason that we're here tonight is because of this. In the last 3 weeks, southeastern U.S. has experienced 2 record-breaking, major, devastating hurricanes. Coastal communities are experiencing dangerous storms at more frequently in the last few years. According to the EPA, 8 of the 10 most active years of modern tropical cyclones have occurred since the mid-1990s. According to NOAA, 2023 was the warmest year in modern temperature record, with 2024 following that same trajectory. I won't bore you with too many statistics, but the correlation is undeniable. So what are we doing? We're taking 2 general approaches to tackling this massive challenge. The first is adaptation and mitigation. This means that we're making a more resilient Deerfield Beach by improving our coastal protections like our dune systems, reefs, and our seawalls, utilizing our recent vulnerability assessment to target improved projects, and continuing with stormwater management updates to handle excessive water in the city. And second is reducing our impact. We do that through the sustainability roadmap strategies and through leading by example. We prioritize these initiatives with a balanced triple bottom line approach. This approach focuses on social, environmental, and economic benefits to ensure that we have a sustainable and responsible growth. The compressed natural gas program is a great example of that. As you can see here, we're experiencing fuel cost savings, earning revenue from renewable natural gas, and also working on some natural excise tax rebates. In addition, the CNG trucks provide social benefits through increased driver and fleet satisfaction and a quieter, more efficient service. And finally, we demonstrate environmental benefits through the reduction of toxic emissions. So we've talked about why we're here, and now let's talk about what we're doing. Earlier this year, as you know, our consultant conducted a municipal operations greenhouse gas inventory for 2017 and 2022. We completed these inventories to see how we've been doing with the projects that we've had going on over the last several years and to create targets for future improvement. We did see a slight decrease in our emissions over the two inventories, and we believe this can be attributed to projects like our CNG program and the building energy efficiency projects that have taken place over the years. Our consultant has taken that information, reviewed national and regional best management practices, and conducted public and staff input sessions. All of this information came together for the resulting roadmap. The roadmap identifies strategies for energy, transportation, waste, and community. Each strategy is assigned to a year, and it includes steps to implement, approximate cost, resources needed, etc. Really, truly a roadmap and a kind of a guiding document to help us move forward with these initiatives. I'll go over the year one strategies in a little bit of detail, and then I'll touch on the strategies for years 2 through 5 after that. Just so you know, a lot of the year one strategies are laying the groundwork for our program, improving outreach and communication within the city. And also as a reminder, a lot of this is focused on our internal operations, again, following that leading by example kind of mantra that we have as a department and as a city. The first strategy is to improve energy efficiency collaboration with state, regional, and utility partners. So for example, we'll be looking at the Solar Together program with the FPL and some regional energy rebate programs that are already in existence around the area. We'll be evaluating and looking to reduce employee commute and the emissions associated with that through strategies like remote work, carpooling, and rideshare programs. We'll be promoting waste reduction in the office through campaigns, including improved recycling and expanded composting programs. We'd like to develop a resource hub for employees to offer education on energy, waste conservation, and potentially incentivize behavior change. This was a key item that was brought up during our staff workshops that our employees really just wanted to know more, so that they could do better. And so that education side is really, really important, which leads into the next strategy, which is to promote sustainability at promote sustainability initiatives at our events and collect data on public interests so that we can better strategize moving forward. This plan is a 5-year plan. So what does the public want as we continue to implement these items? And then finally, we'll develop a method for tracking our initiatives and all of the metrics associated with the new strategies. That was key when we developed the roadmap, was making sure that there's a metric associated with every single strategy that we've proposed so that we can see how we're doing. And then also taking this information and sharing it with the public on our website so that we're as transparent as possible. Years 2 through 5 will include looking further into alternative fuels, solar, other energy efficiency opportunities, code review, composting, tree planting, things like that. There's several initiatives here that we'll be tackling, and we'll be tackling together as a city. As I said before, we did do a staff input session to develop this roadmap, and we expect to continue offering these workshops so that we can continue making this the best roadmap possible and moving forward in the best way possible for the city. This is a living document, and so it'll be used to help guide us with the strategies and the steps that have been defined. But it can also be adjusted to fit our needs as the years go by. And if we have additional items from the public, from staff, from you as a commission that we want to see changed or implemented or added, it's a living document. We can always make those changes. We're looking forward to taking this roadmap and continuing to build our program and making the city of Deerfield Beach cleaner and greener. And with that, I'll take any questions.
Thank you. Commissioner Preston, do you have a question? I think your light was on before.
Yeah.
It's okay. No, not at this time.
Right.
Thank you. Is this an action item?
Yeah, it's resolution.
Yes, Mayor.
Okay, that's
You're
what I
asked
thought.
to adopt the roadmap that was
Thank
just
you.
presented.
Is there anyone from the public that would care to comment on this item? Anyone online? I'm going to close it to the public.
I hadn't
Oh,
planned up.
Name and address for the record.
Joe Mueller, 248 Southeast 18th Avenue, Deerfield Beach. I had not planned to comment on this, but there's something I notice, and as a person that owns a business with vehicles, I don't let my people let the vehicles idle when they're not driving them. And I don't know that I've ever walked past a Deerfield Beach truck from any department that the vehicle is not running while they're doing their work. I presume to keep the air conditioner on. I know it's not a popular thing with the employees, but what I'm saying, but if we would just turn the trucks off when we're not driving, I don't know the percentage, but we could probably have a 10% gas savings or something to that effect. Just an idea. Thank you.
Appreciate it. I'm going to close it to the public then. I would imagine that's part of the culture that we're looking to change. Thank you.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Hudak, seconded by Commissioner Preston. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Item number 18 is a resolution of the City Commission of the City of Deerfield Beach, Florida, approving a change order with BCI Construction, Inc. in the amount of $892,600.80 due to unforeseen conditions, requiring changes to the design and compliance with code and jurisdictional agency requirements related to the International Fishing Pier renovation project, providing for execution, implementation, and an effective date.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Commissioners. Horace McHugh again. I'll go ahead and kick off the presentation, and then if there are any technical questions, we have our director here who would be able to handle it. So this is an aerial of the work that's going on. We have installation being done of framing, decking, handrails, and some of the work that's currently ongoing. Next one. So this is a brief history of the activities going on there. We had damage to the pier, and in December 12th of 23, we had an award to Brothers Construction Inc. This was a base bid. Based on that, we followed up and we received a letter of exemption from the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers for doing the framing, the decking, and the conduits. And this again was for the base bid to replace what was damaged, no enhancements. We then issued a notice to proceed, and they started working in June 4th. Prior to that, we had provided some concepts to the commission on options and alternatives, and that was subsequent to the base bid being issued. So the idea was go ahead and issue the base bid and try to develop some input from the commission, from the community, input from the commission, and see what is desired. Based on that desire, then we went ahead and asked for an additional bid to address the enhancements. We went ahead and submitted permits to the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers for those enhancements in June of 24. And in August, the Army Corps of Engineers recommended splitting out the underwater from the above water work, anticipating that the time requirements for the permitting for the underwater would be a lot longer. As a result, we could actually start the work on the above ground, and that's what we're in the process of doing. The enhancements that were being proposed then triggered review by some various agencies. In one instance is the NFPA, the fire department or fire code. It triggered the need for additional fire protection, upgrading or 4-inch fire stand water line to a 6-inch, and that is in the range of about $245,000. That's primarily because the enhancement itself included an additional pavilion in addition to some other features. In terms of underwater work, we were required to apply for permits or regulations to the National Marine Fisheries Service, as well as U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. And one of the things that they preliminarily told us based on the questions they were asking is, are you going to be using the same method of disposing of the chum as you are now? And subsequent questions they ask and respond, and based on that, one of the things we anticipate that they'll be doing is requiring that we do a disposal aerator type system where it's required to macerate the contents and then connect it to the sewer line. The range of that is about 316, and in addition to that, we did an additional inspection in the water. Previously, there were a number of pilings that had damage, and we have submitted permits to have those repaired. Prior to continuing the work, we did another inspection and observed damage to another piling. So those are three large ticket areas that we are anticipating. Again, these are anticipated costs. We have asked the contractor to give us bids for these so that when the permits come in, if it is required, we are then ahead of the game. We have the bids already and we can move forward. If we kind of wait until the Army Corps of Engineers comes back and says yes or no, and then go out to bid, there's some time required. Next slide, please. So here's a summary of the base bid was 3.2, additional enhancements for the construction component is 1.5. So the contract to date approved is 4.7 million. The below are the additional things that we're coming to you with now. Some minor revisions to the camera system for conduits because of some of the changes we're making. That's about $9,000. The concrete pile, which addresses the structure itself. This is an additional fault that we have seen, that now that we've got the permit and we have the divers going down to do repairs, we're recommending going ahead and doing that now. If it's not now, it's sometime in the relative future. Otherwise, there's some impact on the structural integrity. The additional fire line is a code requirement, and that's because of the additional enhancements and the pavilion itself. So in this case, it's about $245,000. This particular line, we are told, is a stainless steel. There is the opportunity of installing lines, much less expensive, like galvanized, for example, but that's not recommended for the marine environment. The contractor is also looking at some additional option, and we continue to challenged the contractor to come up with some alternatives to this. He's looking at some alternatives there. That's susceptible to the area. In addition, the type of installation would require some specialized person who is familiar with working in the marine environment. It's not a normal plumber that you could just take somebody who is licensed and insured to do this work. The fish cleaning residue, that is something that's required, that may be required by the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Services as well as the National Marine Fisheries Services. So we have gotten an estimate on that. Hopefully that will not be required, but looking at the history of the new piers and the requests that have been, the requests that they have received and how they have processed permits, we anticipate this is a cost that we will incur. So that's about $316,000, replacement of a few board decks, and then contingency in the event there's some additional costs that come back that we don't see at this point in time, which brings us an additional scope of about $892,000 and a revised project of 5.5. Here's a tentative timeline. And what this timeline is suggesting is that the pier would remain closed if this is approved until just about August of next year. And that's anticipating that the permits that we're waiting for will get approved in January 6th or just about January of next year. We'll continue working through the pier enhancements. So the letter of exception that we're using now will get us to a certain extent. We'll have the permits approved at a certain point, and we'll continue working through. Once the pier is open and we have gotten the permits for the underground work and the pier is open again, we'll be able to continue doing the work in the water, maybe just some limited closing at points from at specific days. But we anticipate that this is a revised schedule, or this is a schedule that we'll be able to adhere to. So this is the series of next steps. Going to the Army Corps of Engineers, anticipating that that permit would be issued by January of 2025. The construction to commence after that. Underwater permits, which we are being told that they are not able to process 2 permits for the same location at the same time. So at that time, we'll have to submit the additional permit. Anticipate that a pier would be open around August of next year, and the underwater work anticipated to start to be done by January 2026, and the work we had anticipate at that time not having a significant impact on the pier itself. So the recommendation is to go ahead and approve the change order that we're recommending here.
Thank you. Couple questions that I have before I move on to everybody else. The macedation of the fish remains, is that going to be like a garbage disposal type thing?
It's like an aerator, an industrial aerator. We'll need, for the 5 different stations, we'll need 1 for each. So that it gets connected to a pipe that's connected to the sewer.
But it's essentially a garbage disposal type.
Yes, yes, sir.
It'll be electric, correct?
I don't know for sure. I'd suspect yes.
I would imagine it's either electric, solar, or hand powered. So I would imagine probably electric. So can you bring up page 6 of this presentation, please? You used a key term in this, unforeseen conditions. I have a big problem with this because this is some of this is not unforeseen. I'll wait till you bring up page 6 here. Okay. So new cable line for cameras and PA system. How is that a new item? How did we not anticipate that we would need a new cable line for our cameras and a PA system out there?
Let me ask, Priscilla is a little bit more involved, so let me ask her to address that particular question.
Good evening, Mayor, Commissioners. Yes, so the original intent was to keep our existing underwater conduit and fiber optic cable in its current configuration. However, the addition of the pavilions with the enhancements, it changed the run and the length of the pipe. And we don't want to splice fiber optic cable because then our image quality would not be the same. At the request of Public Affairs and Marketing, we got a quote to redo the conduit and reinstall new fiber optic cable.
I don't know how we would have looked at this as being something that would not be, not knowing the damage that was there. I figured we would have assumed that we would not be able to use the same fiber optic that was there, considering it was destroyed. So I have a problem.
It's in place. Yes, sir.
Yes, it's in place. So it doesn't mean it's operational and doesn't mean that it's necessarily, obviously we have to do some work on that. That's the smallest part of this weird price tag on here. The concrete pile repairs falls under the category of an unforeseen condition. I'm completely supportive of that. I understand that. That's not something we could anticipate. Further inspection of this, completely reasonable to look at this. Additional fire line for code compliance. We knew we were adding another pavilion. We know we have a fire line that exists now for the one pavilion that's out here. And this is some of the stupidity, I'll be honest with you, with government. This makes no sense to me that a fire line that has to extend like that is going to cost us $245,000 additional dollars. We know we already have one running to the first pavilion. So how would we not anticipate that by adding a second pavilion, we might need it to run out to that one?
So the current one runs to the bait shop, and it's right at the terminus, essentially the westernmost portion of the pier to date. The new NFPA code requirements, because we're doing an alteration, we've triggered new building code. The new NFPA code requirements requires a standpipe for every 150 feet for the length of the pier, and so it's for the length of the pier.
So you have to, the water pipe has to run all the way down to the end of the pier.
As I understand it, yes, sir.
Okay. And we didn't know that when we were bidding this out.
No, originally when we approached the fire chief about this question, it was just on the base bid, which was putting back what was there. And we would have been under the original building code when the pier was built in 1992. Because we're doing an alteration that triggers building code under new NFPA requirements. And so now under the new building code, this would be the requirement.
But we knew at that point in time that we were putting these additions on there.
Once the enhancements were approved, yes, but it was not known that the standpipe would be required.
It's my opinion, this should have been. And it makes no sense to me that it has to be to the degree that it is. The water that runs out there now is PVC. I know that because if you go to the end of the pier, when it was demolished, you see pieces of PVC pipe wrapped up in there. We're talking galvanized, which would be the most ridiculous thing because I get it about the conditions. But PVC not to be able to be used and even entertained on this, to me, is baffling.
We are entertaining HDPE, which is a hot welded product that would have no seams. And that, as I understand it from the fire chief, would be an approved product. So that is something that is potentially.
PVC would not?
No, unfortunately, not for a 6-inch fire main.
Why does it have to be 6-inch?
Just based on what the requirements are for fire protection when they run the calculations.
So we have to do fire protection to essentially a structure that's at the end of the ocean.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So we don't have bonfires, we don't have grills there, we don't have anything, but just mere fact that there's something there. This is government stupidity right here, that we have to make this a requirement that has to go there. And that's not your fault. But I do think it falls on the city that we should have anticipated that this additional cost would have been there. This is not unforeseen. This is a lack of planning, in my opinion. Fish cleaning, residue grinding disposal system, $316,000. This is another really stupid thing. Because if we don't have those stations out there and we don't have these grinding things out there, what do you think is going to happen to the fish residue? Do you think those fishermen are going to put it in a bag and make sure they walk it all the way back to the beach? I'm going to tell you what they're going to do. They're going to throw it over the side. Government stupidity. Not our fault, but that is the dumbest thing I've ever heard. That's exactly what's going to happen. It's happening when we had fish cleaning stations, it's going to happen. It's certainly going to happen now, but to say that I have to go out there in saltwater conditions, that you've already told me that because of the conditions, we can't use PVC pipe, but we can use electric devices out there in the saltwater, and we think they're going to hold up and not be a maintenance issue? This is absurd. And the price tags on these are ridiculous. $500,000 for a fire line that makes no sense to me, and a fish cleaning residue grinding disposal system that we have to put a mini sewer in so the fish guts that are being used as bait going in the water, the bigger pieces or other pieces have to be ground up and disposed of properly. Really stupid. Replacement of additional deck boards. I don't understand that either.
So we had originally contracted to do about a 60-40 mix. Ipe is a wonderful material. The Ipe hardwood withstands our marine conditions very well. And we had a number of boards that we had just recently placed on the pier that are in very good condition. And so part of the contract was reusing a portion of those boards and kind of doing a 60-40 mix. We did have staff and Parks and Rec jointly walk out along the pier, and we marked all the deck boards that we wanted to reuse and the ones that would be replaced. And the ratio came out a little higher to bring in some new boards. So the request is, essentially to try to provide more of a pristine finished product.
Okay. It's my opinion that a lot of this is some really stupid government oversight that's illogical. But I think, knowing that this is something that we were looking to do, these enhancements to our current pier, all of these things should have been considered at the time when you gave us estimates, when we were decision making. And that wasn't done, and that makes no sense to me. There's no excuse for it, in my opinion, city manager, that we can't anticipate that the new fire code is in place. Who's the project manager that looks at this and doesn't understand when giving estimates, or even the contractor doesn't understand that, there's new code that's going to happen because we're making enhancements, so it's going to be $245,000. We run PVC out there now. That's our water. That's what gets our water out to the end of the pier with the little stations that we have. That has held up. There hasn't been an issue. And now we're saying it's not good enough, and we're going to consider galvanized or stainless steel. I think the easier decision, rather than approving this, because some of this may happen. We don't know.
Yes, it's condition of permit. Mhm.
Right. Condition of permit, as this may happen.
Yes, sir.
I can tell you right now, get rid of the fish cleaning stations if this is what it's going to cost us, and get rid of the extra pavilion. And I think if you take away those two things, that gets us right back to where we were before, with the exception of some other enhancements that aren't really structural. Is that about right?
We could potentially bring the cost down if we reduce the enhancements.
Well, I think I would hope so, because we certainly can bring the cost down if we get rid of the enhancements. My point is, we're not going to be held to those same standards and guidelines if this is a restoration project as opposed to an enhancement project. Is that correct?
Well, yes, but all of those enhancements, the 1.5 million that was approved for enhancements for those additional pavilions, those are all contractually obligated at this time.
So we're stuck with 1.5 million, and we're stuck with this price tag right now. That's
Well,
what you're telling
we
me.
always have the option for termination, but just we have already contracted for those enhancements and already started some of the work on that.
And your estimates, so $1.5 million was your original price tag, and you're telling me it's going to cost how much more?
Another 800,000, yes, sir.
Okay. So you don't know how to estimate a project.
Sir, the pricing did come from our awarded contractor.
No, it's your job and it's our job as a city, before you go out to do that you have a general idea of what the project's going to be. So now you're saying that I'm stuck with 1.5. I can't back out of this now because I'm on the hook for $1.5 million, and you're going to add 890,000. You want to talk about cost overruns? I tell you what, this is what you're talking about, a cost overrun. This is a fiasco. And by the way, in our little meeting that we had in prepping for this, no one told us, at least told me, that we couldn't back out of this and just take this out because we're on the hook for 1.5 million.
Mayor, we can, without looking in details at the contract, because we have not done that as yet, there are certain things that we can reduce. If, for example, the estimates come on down, for example, we have an estimate here for the fish cleaning, grinding thing. If that's not included, it doesn't mean that we can't do the entire project. So this is a request anticipating the worst, but hoping for the best. We will continue to work and argue and plead our case and see if we can get a reduced value, a reduced product for the same value. In terms of the cost, the contractor, we shared our concern with him. What he did was to share the bids that he got in for these things. And some of the bids, for example, the estimates are based on market conditions and demand, et cetera, et cetera. So he shared the responses that he got for the quotes for these. And, he's providing them to us, essentially saying this is a cost I'm getting at this time. Some of it probably, had it been a year ago or a year later, the conditions or the price may change, and that's kind of reflective in here, which we may not have been able to estimate at a year ago.
I mean, you might as well give me gold piping out there at these costs.
Okay.
I mean, this is ridiculous. Yeah. This makes no sense. And this is project management. This is an inability to look ahead at this and understand it better. This cost overrun is absurd, and I can't get out of it. That's the way you write it up. That's the way you guys go about this. This is the dumbest thing I've ever heard. And I've heard a lot of dumb things up here, including tonight. But this takes the cake, because positioning ourselves in this to say, well, we'll do the enhancements later and let's get the ball rolling. And yet binding us contractually when we don't know the full price tag of what it's going to be, and you guys wildly being off, is a travesty.
So Mayor, if I may suggest that we put that sentence in abeyance, because we have not spoken to the attorney and confirmed that with the attorney as yet in terms of.
So in other words, we're just saying things that we don't know whether it's accurate or not. I tell you what, I get it with the concrete piling repairs, as I said, looking at this. I don't know if we can table this. If we need to continue to move forward, most likely it'll cost me more money if I table it, God forbid, because it's probably the way it's written. But this is ridiculous. And even make a comment that you haven't cleared with the attorney yet. I don't know how you think this is going to go over with us or the people that we represent. But this is a failure. Majority of this is a failure of project management and understanding this. That's what this is. This is a true cost overrun, not Tigner Center, not over there at Braithwaite. This is a cost overrun that is just because someone doesn't know how to do their job. And this is unacceptable, completely unacceptable. Commissioner Hudak and Commissioner Press, I'm not sure you guys go first. Commissioner Hudak.
Well, Mr. Mayor must have read my notes, because I am of the exact same opinion. This is piss poor planning at its best. And now, I don't know, how many piers has BCI Construction made?
Have them here. They can speak to that, Marty.
My point is they're the subject matter experts. When we come in with these changes, they should be able to anticipate what those cost increases are going to be. Not, okay, you want to do this, let me find out, let me get a cost. That's the bottom line challenge here, is we're not given the full picture. We just earlier today approved an item that was $2 million less than the next bidder. Are we going to be in the same situation with that project? Because that bidder just low bidded the project, and then after the project is halfway done, they're going to come with all of these changes, and they're going to get up to the $7 million that every other bidder was at. You know, you've got us by the short hairs. Okay. Like I said earlier, we're competing with Pompano. You've seen that pier. We want to make sure we drive traffic to Deerfield Beach. We're competing with Delray Beach. We're competing with Boca. So we've already said, hey, this is the project that we want. This is what we do. You knew about this ahead of time, and that now you're coming in with all of these additional costs with a 20% above. This is, like I said earlier, how big things get done. This is a complete failure. And I'm not blaming the contractor. They have a job to do. I'm blaming city staff, because our job is to vet them, vet the projects. They need to be the subject matter expert that tells us, hey, you want to add an extra pavilion? This is what it's going to cost. You want to add fish statements? This is what it's going to cost. Not 6 months after the fact, okay, we're ready to go. This is how much you're going to charge. And you know, this is, like the mayor said, unforeseen conditions requiring changes. Hey, we should have known the status of those concrete pylons when we started the project. Obviously, additional challenges came up. This is, you know, you got us by the short hairs, and we really don't have a choice. But it's really unacceptable. It really is.
Commissioner Preston?
Mr. Mayor, to my colleague to my right, you're 100% right. This is very difficult, and I will tell you, Vice Mayor, here's where I struggle when you know, spending the money. But like my colleague just said, we're in a very difficult situation, and I'm going to tell you, you got to really embrace the idea of those cleaning stations, because all that mess is going to be on a brand new pier, and it's going to, and I've seen it. You know, unless you're going to invest the money to make sure that pier is clean the way it needs to be clean, people are going to just, you know, when they could have a system there to take care of that. It just, these unanticipated costs puts us in a difficult situation. But what I'm wondering, if we don't get this, do we end up in the long run paying more? So as challenging as it may be, and Mayor, you're 100% right, I don't see how some of this could not have been anticipated. I mean, I just think that there could have been something, but now that we're in this situation, now that we're in this, what do we do? And my fear is that we may not end up with the nice pier that we thought that we would get. And it seemed that we're locked in to a certain degree. Commissioner Hudak said that about Pompano Pier, and I hear a lot about that, Pompano Pier. And at one point, Deerfield Pier was really everybody, people from Miami, because I used to talk to them, coming all the way down from Miami to fish on our pier. And when that pier is done, it needs to be a magnet like it was. So, you know, I just want to tell my colleagues, the fish stations, you don't want all that mess on the fish deck. You don't want that on the pier deck. You just don't. There's a lot of problems that could occur if we don't do it right. And having been in the fire department, I will tell you that the NFPA I struggle with, but because they would come out with things, they, you know, I will tell you, staff has no control over the NFPA. They don't. They say, here's my standard. That's it. And let me just tell you.
Staff should know what the standard is.
Okay, I'm okay with that. But that standard won't change whether they know or not. That standard is what it is. And if you don't do it, we shut you down, that kind of thing. It's just that I'm not saying that they shouldn't have known. Okay.
They tell us.
You know,
That's their job.
you know, but if they say 6-inch piping, that's not their decision. That's not their decision. That's come from the state of Florida. And they are hardcore in these things. Unfortunately, it's reflected in a tremendous cost. And I don't know what you do if you decide not to put the standpipe in. And that's actually what it is. It's a standpipe. Okay, that's what it is. Not just piping. It's a standpipe. So that if the fire department has to connect to it, you're going to have the adequate flow of water and the gallons per minute. That 6-inch is why it is 6-inch. It's GPM in case there's an issue. So I get it. It's tough. I just can say to my colleagues, I hope I can have added a little, I'm with you though. It's just, this is a very difficult situation to be in. But I don't know what happens if we don't do it. I think that there's also the possibility here that we could end up paying more, or at least putting ourselves in a situation, because if we ever have a fire on that pier, if we could get a date, first of all, the state won't let you get away with it. But if it's not done right, there would be a lot of questions after that. That's for sure. So, thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Vice Mayor.
The benefit of going last is that you guys got to yell first, so it's out of your system. But I understand the challenge with this item, because these are not inexpensive changes that we're being asked to approve. And removing, we voted for these enhancements because we wanted the best pier possible to attract as many people to come to Deerfield Beach and make us the international fishing pier that we are known for. That's what we voted to do. That's why we voted for these enhancements. I think the problem that we all have is that when we voted for those enhancements, it should have been foreseen at that time that these particular changes were going to be made. The timeline that was in the presentation, slide 4, and you don't need to bring it up, but slide 4 was, we awarded the contract to Brothers on December 12th, 2023. And then thereafter, on March 5th, 2024, we approved the additional enhancements to the pier. I'm not blaming the contractor. I mean, they build what we tell them to build. But we should have known at that time in March 2024 that these contingencies were possible. They weren't unforeseen. They were possible if we had vetted it. The only one that I understand that possibly was not foreseeable is the concrete pile repairs, because since the storms that we've had since then has shifted the sand, and there's things that we can see now that we weren't able to see at that particular time. I can buy that. But the cabling and the deck boards, I mean, the deck boards, just go out and count the deck boards. I mean, that's not very difficult. Those are the two smallest items. But when you put in the fire line and the disposal system, when we approve those enhancements, we should have known that, hey, by putting in the the disposal system, it's going to potentially require this upgrade, which is going to cost X amount of dollars. And that, I think, is where the failure is because those considerations were not brought to our attention at the time we approved the enhancements. If we don't approve them, then we don't get the pier that we approved. So what do we do? So I guess I'd like to know, from the city, and unless I'm wrong, city manager, as to the timing on all of this, I kind of like to know what our options are going forward. I mean, are we stuck with these numbers, or do we have to reduce the enhancements, which I'm really not in favor of either, because I voted for the enhanced pier to attract people to that area, and we wanted, we wanted those particular projects. So, and we discussed that. So, I kind of like to know what the options are going forward.
So one option is to approve this. That's one option. The other option is not to approve the NFPA requirement and the fish macerator, which by virtue of that, you would not be able to get the enhancements. So it's just to replace what you had. Other options include, one of the things we're talking to the contractor about is the fire standpipe, the 6-inch stainless steel that's recommended by our engineer of record, to see if they would accept HDPE as an alternative, which provides some reduction in cost. So we can look at some of those areas for potential reduction in costs. Other options could include, instead of maybe 5 fish stations, 4, it would require some adjustments, and that's probably, nickel and diming, and some other value engineering options like that. So some range like that.
So I think you need to sit down with the contractor in not this setting. This is not the setting to do it. I don't want anyone doing this on the fly and making up numbers or coming to conclusions, but just having a sit down and coming back to us so we know what our real options are without taking away the enhancements that we approved that we wanted to see at this location.
One caveat is that it's still in the permitting process. So there are other information we may get in terms of requirements. We're responding to the requests, but we do anticipate the permit to be issued until in January. They're going through the review now. So I'd also offer that comment.
Okay.
So, just to recap a couple of these things, is if we had known some of this cost, if we had known when we were making our decisions, we may have moved forward with it as it was, because we knew we wanted the best for it. So we may have at that point. So part of the frustration is the fact we should have known what the full price tag, or at least a hell of a lot closer than what we are. This is a wide miss on an estimate on this. But so that's unfortunate, because honestly, I don't think some of these enhancements, if we had known this, and correct me if I'm wrong, if we kept it exactly the same, the new rules wouldn't have applied on the water piping, and it wouldn't have applied on the fish cleaning center.
Correct.
Okay. So by triggering that, is that accurate or not?
If we had not altered.
Come to the mic, please.
If we had not made any alterations, kept the same fish cleaning stations, we wouldn't be doing a permit for those, because those would have remained essentially. But the existing pavilion, again, that would have just been repair and rehabilitation.
So all these new rules kick in because it's a restoration.
Because it's an alteration.
Because it's not a restoration.
Correct, it's an alteration.
Okay. That should have been anticipated. You should have known right then, guess what? New rules apply, new code, new everything across the board, restoration or rehabilitation. In rehabilitation compared to an enhancement, new rules apply, just like building codes that we have everywhere else. You should have known that.
Yes, sir. And it was in the failure of doing a full design, because what we did was just conceptual renderings for the commission's approval.
But you locked us into a $1.5 million contract on that, but by going with just winging it, drawing it on a napkin. That to me is where I've had it with this. That's absurd that you've put us in this position. Absolutely absurd. Because if we had known that, I have a feeling we would have said, no, we can't. The cost is too much. I mean, I know costs are crazy. We see what the heck it costs us to do lifeguard stands we thought was absurd. And we said, forget it, we're not going to do it. We put it off for a year and the price went up. Okay. So we know this is absurd. These requirements are absurd in adding this to it. I'm pretty sure probably sponsored by whoever manufactures this piping when I put this in place, because it makes no sense to me. But if we had known this, I wouldn't have approved to move forward with this, because I can't look my residents in the face and say, by giving you a couple extra fish cleaning stations, it's going to cost you $316,000. Giving you a little extra cover down there is going to cost you just to run the fire pipe. Forget the rest of the cost. It's going to cost you $250,000. No, wouldn't have done it. But I have you guys to thank for that, for putting us in this situation. And
Okay.
that to me is completely unacceptable.
Understood. Thank you.
Commissioner Preston and then Commissioner Hudak.
I would like to see staff, we're looking at 892,000 additional. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
You need to talk with the contractors and see what can be done with that cost, because built into that is just not materials. There's a profit margin in there. And I don't want people to work for nothing. We live in capitalism. People work and they're supposed to make money. But this is a lot. This is a lot for the taxpayer. This is a lot. And like my colleague said, we don't do it, then we don't get the pier that we thought we were going to get. So where does that put us? So that 892,680 needs to be negotiated. And I will think it a complete insult if they say we'll take off the 80 cents. So this has got to be dealt with. This needs to be dealt with seriously so that you can say, you got a commission that, because you can see that all of us want the best for the beach. We want the best for our constituency. And everybody that's here sat here with the idea that we were going to be the trendsetters. When that pier was open, it would trump anything around. And I'm going to tell you, when I do have a little time, obviously I can't fish on my own pier. I've been going up to Juneau. Now, that's a whole nother ball game because it's managed by Loggers Run, and they invest. There's a lot of investment. They just did a big thing on that pier over there. This needs to be, when it comes to fishing, a destination point. This is not just a project. This should be a destination point. Now, I think that price needs to be negotiated, but we're in a very difficult situation. But because I want the pier that I've been telling everybody that they're going to get. We don't deliver on that. Guess what? Our constituency is not District 2, it's District 1, 2, 3, and 4. They're not happy. And they would have every right to not be happy. So I hope this can get fixed. I hope this can. And here's the problem, if I'm hearing you right, the permitting and the timeline can change, because if we put this off too long, we could be affected. Is that right? That's what I thought. Okay.
Commissioner Hudak.
Yeah, that was my question. If we don't make a decision tonight, how much would that affect the timeline? Just for contents, it looks like the Pompano Pier cost about $9 million to build.
Did it really?
It's what Google says.
Okay. Yeah, and it's a shame we didn't know that information when we could have made these guesstimations of what a pier might cost in looking at this. Here's the problem, those of you who want to move forward with this, and because we are in a bad situation, our hand might be forced. But this is $550,000 approximately on two line items that are really basically a fish churning sewage system to get rid of fish scrap, bait scraps, and a fire line going to the second pavilion. That's $550,000. Looking at the incompetence that was done and not being able to guesstimate this, what's our next project cost to overrun going to be? Because I can tell you right now, based on what I've seen, I don't trust that there won't be more on this. So where does that leave us? This is really disturbing. I'm going to let you guys take a break, and we're going to take a break just so we can let the public speak on this item. Anyone from the public care to comment on this item? Mr. Hurst, can you pause one moment? Sorry to make you get up. Is there anyone online first? Okay, don't sit down, Dan. Sorry. I didn't want you to do the hokey pokey.
Every day my niece getting
Didn't
better,
want
don't
you to do
worry.
the hokey pokey, but Dominic says.
Dan Hurst, 330 Southeast 19th Avenue. Mayor, I never thought I'd say this, but I feel your pain. Also, to be fair, and I always try to be fair, let's not forget who the city manager was during this whole project. And now he is in Tennessee. Also, I don't know if that gentleman was from BCI, but Commissioner Preston made a great point. They can sharpen their pencils. This is a huge contract already. So maybe under the circumstances, they can sharpen their pencils a little bit also. The other thing in here is that the city expected the taxpayers to believe that it was just a coincidence that information about this $900,000 cost to repair the pier and the need for an Army Corps of Engineers permit comes out only hours after Judge Valley ruled on Class Act Restaurant Group's temporary restraining order against the city of Deerfield Beach. How interesting that one day no Army Corps permit is needed when in front of a judge, and a few seconds later, not only is an Army Corps permit necessary, but it'll probably delay the pier project's completion for months, if not years. What I find so interesting is everyone at the city forgot about what the environmental services director had said at a public meeting a few months ago. She said when giving an update on the pier that the city was waiting on a permit from the Army Corps of Engineers. As I mentioned earlier this evening, the city could not wait to close down the pier parking lot and put up more barricades than what is found at a presidential rally. However, in their zeal to punish Class Act, the city has also negatively affected all businesses in the surrounding area. Commissioner Preston asked recently that he would like to know the figures for how much sales the restaurants have lost in business since the city shut down everything on June 3rd. I was able to get exact figures from Class Act and Flanagan's for you, Commissioner. Flanagan's is down 25% compared to the same time last year, and Class Act is down 35%. As the District 1 Commissioner said so eloquently at last Tuesday's CRA meeting, there won't be any businesses still open for business by the time the pier reopens. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? I'm going to close it to the public then. My problem with the sharpening of the pencils is that, look, the reality is I'm sure that they might be able to do some cost engineering savings on that, which I'm confident there will be some. This is an estimate, but it's not going to get us anywhere near a reasonable price because the price tag's so huge. They're not going to be able to cut bone on it. It's going to get to a certain point that, let's say you peel off $50,000, but $50,000 or $100,000 even on a $550,000 overrun for two line items. Pencils get sharp. They can't be that sharp. And I certainly wouldn't fault the contractor in looking at that and trying to get there, but I hope they do. I hope they try to. But what's disturbing is I'm coming to a meeting and I'm hearing a comment from our head engineer that legally we're tied into this. Do you have an answer, City Attorney, whether we're tied in with this or not?
So the city did execute a change order for this work. However, there are mechanisms within the contract with which we can work with the contractor. I mean, I think they know we have a termination for convenience, for example. So if ultimately the commission decides that you want to pivot and not do these enhancements, I think we would discuss that with the contractor first, with their understanding on what our rights are. One of the issues that generally comes up in such circumstances, and I don't know the answer to this, I don't know if Priscilla or the contractor knows, is, what costs have they incurred? Have they ordered any supplies, et cetera, for those enhancements, or incurred any costs in relation to those enhancements thus far? That's a technical question. I can't answer for you.
Yeah. Okay. So what are you looking for us to do here, City Manager?
Mayor, Vice Mayor had asked for some options. We had a recommendation. Vice Mayor had asked for some options. So anywhere within that range, whether it's to approve this, whether to not approve this, whether to, actually by not approving it, acknowledging that the enhancements would not be accomplished. I mean, those are some of the options, but we did offer a recommendation based on what we were given as the directive in terms of getting it accomplished. We got the estimate and we're providing that estimate now, anticipating that the permit is going to require the garbage disposal and the fire line. In the meantime, we'll continue working with a contractor if this is approved, to try and continue to reduce the cost, to continue sharpening his pencil. It may not be to the full amount, but it may be 50,000. I don't know, but we'll continue working through that with a contractor if it is. I'm sorry? Yeah, I'm just throwing out a number.
Sure.
Yeah, but you asked, so if it is approved, we'll continue working with the contractor. But the option is approving or not approving. And by not approving, the 211,000, that's for the concrete piling. I don't know if you're discussing that, but the two particular items are actually triggered by the enhancements. So by not approving that, you wouldn't get the enhancements.
Commissioner Hudak?
Motion to approve.
Nadrowski, comments?
I was gonna ask, is there any magic in tonight? Is there any harm in tabling to the next meeting to allow you, the city attorney, the contractor, to get together and put your heads together and come back? Maybe you're at the same point you are tonight, but I'd like that conversation to happen.
I thought he said there would be an additional cost or a closing of a window or something.
I don't know if I heard or didn't hear that. Could someone?
Well, just to clarify, if we table it, what are you looking to do? Because I heard that 50,000 would help, but I heard that 50,000 is still a lot. So, just to clarify, we get to the contractor, we get to the attorney says, yes, we can work in terms of adjusting, reducing, etc. But just help me understand what the objective would be, what you're asking me to do.
I'd like to know how much of this $892,600.80 can be negotiated, and to what degree. If it's 50,000, we need to know that. If it's 500,000, we need to know that as well. If it's zero, I think we need to know that as well. But I don't anticipate you being able to do that on the fly tonight.
Okay.
Marty does have some prepared numbers if you want to.
Okay. Mayor, we have been talking since about 8 o'clock this morning with a contractor. So Priscilla has let me know that he has some numbers.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Commissioner, I'm sorry, sir. Commissioner Preston, go ahead.
I will say this to you, Mr. City Manager, and to you, Priscilla. The contractor also has to know, you got some serious people here. If we decide to pivot, they don't make nothing. So there should be an incentive. I think that if we all take a deep breath and do what's right, I think there's some room here to be able to make it happen. But to go from, let's say, 800, almost actually, this is 900 grand. And, for just rounding off, you can say it's like $1 million. But what's the real interest in doing business in the city of Deerfield Beach? I mean, what are you willing to do? Because you could end up, with, a concern from our mayor, hostility against this. And maybe if we just take a break, take a challenge here, we can fix this thing. But I'm going to tell you, I'm struggling too. And if there was a vote, it won't be good. But the vice mayor brought up some good points as well. So I would like to hear from the contractor now. Let's see if we can get close here.
Thanks for letting me speak. I just want to.
Sorry, do you need your name for the record?
Oh, sorry. My name's Martin Keneally. I'm the senior project manager for the job. Also vice president of the company, partner. Our company's been in business for 10 years. The founders of the company have been doing marine structures like this for 25 to 30 years. We have a fantastic reputation. That's why we were selected for this project. There were certainly a few issues at the beginning of the project with the design that we helped a lot on. We brought in our own engineer and helped with a design build effort for a lot of the changes to the base works that made it a more structural integrity type system didn't result in much of a cost increase. That was all kind of rolled in with the additional works that we gave you. And I do want to speak a little bit to the three big items. First is the pile repairs. That is something that the divers went and looked at. Like somebody had mentioned up here, that the sand does shift around, so there is a chance that it may not have gotten picked up when the original engineer went and looked at it. I don't know right now if that's honestly necessary that they get repaired. What I did was I said, listen, my team and my engineer can't say that they need jackets, so I'm going to put it back to the city and their engineer, Kimley Horn. I recommended an engineer for them to go to see if they actually are needed to be repaired. So the 200,000, 211, I believe it is a big number. And I hope that maybe it's none of that. Maybe it's half of that. So right now, that's not something that's for sure. Okay. The next one is the macerator system. My opinion there is that, I know it's easy to say that we should have foreseen this condition, but when you get into the intricacies of how the agencies look at these things, I mean, you have existing systems right now where the fish guts go straight through the deck into the water. If you're to modify that system at all, that could trigger the macerator system. So, the fact that you want new fish cleaning stations is why that we're thinking it may trigger this, but we're not 100% sure yet. The agencies take forever to get back to us and tell us if we need it or not. I still know that there are piers that don't require the macerator system. So we're not, again, it's kind of a worst case scenario, this figure.
Does Pompano have that with their new pier? They have a macerator
I believe
system.
they do. I believe they do.
Okay.
I was not involved in that project, but I know there are other projects.
No, it's nice to know that if we
Yeah.
had actually looked at the neighboring city that we have just south was the next biggest pier we've got next.
Right.
We actually looked at that. We could have anticipated that being a case, but I'm not putting that on you.
It could have been, another thing too is that, engineers could have thought that it was grandfathered in because right now it goes to the deck. When they rebuilt their pier, they put in all new systems entirely, right? So we thought maybe we'd be grandfathered in by the deck, and we may still be. So I know that's a big price tag item, and there's potential that it may not be needed. The next one is the fire line system, and that is something that we talked about a long time ago, and I'm pretty sure we were told by the fire marshal it wouldn't be needed, and that was probably before the enhancements. Now, after the enhancements, he said it was needed, but I talked to him on the phone today, and I said, listen, is it absolutely needed? And he couldn't give me a straightforward answer. He said, you have to talk to my boss. So you can see probably, I just don't want them to be thrown under the bus entirely because there is some confusion out there on the street. So I wanted to bring that up. As far as cost savings goes, there are certainly some areas to save on money. The sewer system and the fire system are both subcontracted items for us. We self-perform a lot of the structural work, and we've got prices from 3 different contractors, all reputable guys, and there's very limited amount of people that do that type of work. We got three quotes from the guys that we do business with, and we've given them our quotes that, so the markups are per contracts, 10%, 5%. So there's no sharpening on our end for profits. It's literally just handing numbers over. The pile repairs is the same diver that we selected in the base works against 3 other bidders. He's the cheapest one. He was the cheapest one to do additional piles, and he's still the cheapest to continue.
I'm going to cut you off
Yep.
just a little bit. Concrete, I don't think anybody has an issue with the concrete pile repairs.
Okay.
That's reasonable, understandable, and unforeseeable. Okay, I understand that.
Right.
I get it. These other 2 items, I appreciate that you've got some estimates. I mean, is there some cost savings that you have found and what you've looked at to bring this down lower
Yeah.
than what it is? And
Yes.
staff is still giving this to us at this price tag.
I've found some cost savings opportunities. Yes, we've given the high range numbers because again, We want to give you the best product possible, but
Right.
there are certainly some things to do. The price you're looking at is stainless steel pipe. That can certainly be HDPE. We confirmed with the fire marshals today. That's a $70,000 to $80,000 change. There's other things in here that I've found that I think the enhancements, they're big numbers that I think we could shrink them down. When we originally gave out the budget, I think it was somewhat heavy, and I think there's ways to save. Between us here, I found almost $400,000 worth of stuff to save that we can work with this team to save.
And yet we're presented with this. Okay, that's good. Thank you.
But this was today. This was all developed today because
Yeah,
in
because
anticipation.
we actually said, hey, this is a problem. So I appreciate that. And I do appreciate the savings could potentially be found there.
Right.
Sorry, he is reducing enhancements. I just wanted to clarify that.
Yeah, that
So some of the savings that he's proposing is a reduction in the fish bait stations, which I indicated would likely not
How
fly.
many from reduction of
So
how
you-
many?
You have 3 right now, and you wanted 5. My proposal would be to go back to 3. Because the macerators are very expensive. And the amount of line cuts down the line, and the systems that the actual fish cleaning tables themselves that you want are very unique and very expensive. So that was one of the items. I mean, that amounts to about $100,000 for that big number I gave you.
Okay.
But yes, we will work with this team certainly to get the numbers down. In the $1.5 million for the additional works, like I said, we're going to work with you guys to get the numbers down. If we have to, and that's what you want us to do, we will do that.
Yeah, that's definitely I think that's pretty unanimous. That's what we want you to do. But thank you very much for that.
got
I
it.
appreciate it. I know we have a motion on the floor. I don't know if there's a second for this or not. I'm going to add one caveat to it. I want to say that if we're going to move forward with this, and that's what's on the table, that we replace whoever is in charge of this project. That has to change. Okay. I know we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Mr. Mayor, I'm sorry to interrupt, but if I could make a friendly suggestion on your motion, it currently reads in the amount of 892, 680. So if you may want to consider an amount not to exceed to give us that room to negotiate. So approve it, but do so in an amount not to exceed
Okay, I'll make that
the
motion.
value that's there versus, okay.
Okay. Not to exceed? That's your motion? Okay.
Not to exceed what?
So the item is stated that you're approving a change order in the amount of 892, 680 cents, right? Based on today's conversation, what I'm suggesting is if you move forward and you want those negotiations to take place and that number to be reduced, that maybe the motion is to approve in an amount not to exceed,
Okay.
which provides for the ability to bring that cost down and work with the contractor as was suggested.
Mr. Attorney, I guess you don't know the answer to this. I was going to ask, when will we know what that cost is? Because that's what you're hearing. If you're listening to this commission, they want that negotiation to take place. I guess my question would be, can we wait to the next city commission meeting to know what that cost is?
So these were presented as worst case scenarios, and until the Army Corps comes back, I won't be able to tell you if that fish maceration system is going to be a requirement.
Okay.
We are anticipating that as a cost, and we're giving you the worst case scenario tonight, just in the eventuality that it is required.
So we can wait.
Well, I'm just saying if you approve a not to exceed, the idea is the city would not install those if they are not required, and then that would come off of the top. That, we wouldn't obviously be encumbering that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Vice Mayor Drosky?
So why are we entertaining approving the full amount of 892,000 when it was represented to us? There's potentially $400,000 of savings there. Why wouldn't we approve an amount not to exceed 892 minus 400,000, 492,000 to say 500,000? Why don't we approve an amount not to exceed $500,000? And then if there's changes or contingencies or this or that happens, come back to us again. Why are we approving
I agree.
the full amount? That gives neither side.
I'll amend
If we
my
approve the
motion.
full amount, we're giving neither side an
You're right.
incentive to talk.
I'll amend my motions to not to exceed 500,000.
Well, what that does is that ties you in now. So if those savings aren't there, there's other changes that need to be done. I think it's problematic. City manager, I see you're dancing, wanting to say something.
Yeah, I know Priscilla has been talking to contractor, and from what I just heard, that 400,000 represents a reduction in the enhancements. So I think that's what Priscilla just represented, reduction in the enhancements. So I don't know that the motion would get us the enhancements in its current configuration, which is what I hear the consensus to be.
But what enhancement would be gone?
Three of the,
I think we
or
can live
excuse me,
with
two of
two
the,
two
two
stations.
of the 5 stations.
Yeah, there's some more. You want me to I'll give you a brief
Sure.
list.
Sure, what we lose. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah, so two of the 5 stations. I think that these are some minor things, but they all add up. The benches, I think they can be downgraded a little bit. They were really over-designed. Same with the fish cleaning tables themselves. The materials they're made out of are very expensive. They're like $10,000 a piece. I think we could knock those in half, if not more. Some of the HDPE fire line, that I kind of grouped that in that amount too, as in lieu of the stainless. And then another thing is, this is a big one, but the louver system that's on the roof, on the large roof structures,
Yes.
that makes them really tall. That's like $100,000 savings if we weren't to do the louver systems and we were just to make, them a little bit shorter. So again, that's just some, I'm throwing out some ideas. There's some,
Right.
there's some signage, there's some wayfinding things. There's some allowances in there that I don't think we're going to use up. There's some permitting savings. It's all kind of a group of maybe 20 items that we just haven't brought to light yet because it's all kind of developing as in front of us. So that's the list.
Thank you.
Okay.
The mere fact that we have to have these presentations and to be angry about it, then you guys start going to look, giving us options on savings, is disturbing to me. We shouldn't be, it shouldn't take this. It shouldn't be getting numbers on the fly. When you do a presentation, here's your options. Here's the price tag. This is what it is. Here's what you can do to cut some savings. You don't do it the morning of the commission meeting, which you're lassoing us in to make a decision. That is poor planning. That's incompetence, and it needs to stop.
Oh, Mayor, you'd asked for an alternative. I'd offer another alternative. One of the things we can do, we just heard Priscilla saying that we can wait another couple of weeks. So another option is to defer it. We could come back with a more specific estimate, recognizing that some of these estimates are still subject to the permitting requirement of other agencies. But the ones that we know for now for sure, we could come back, as well as some alternatives like the Louvre adjustments and some of the others.
I'm going to withdraw my motion then.
Vice Mayor, Commissioner Preston, I'm not sure who's going first here. Vice Mayor. Yeah.
Based upon that, I think that's the way to go, but I would like to see the options like in columns. This is what we get for column A. This is what we get for column B. This is what we get for column C. Because I didn't understand it at first that we were losing amenities as in the result of the reduction of price. I mean, it makes sense, but Commissioner Preston, we have to decide collectively, all 5 of us, do we want to lose these additional amenities? Do we want the reduced louvers? Do we want the cheapened benches? Do we want, less stations? We're cheapening the pier by reducing the price. Is that the way we want to go? But I think I want to see those options A, B, C, and then we can go from there because I'm kind of torn. I don't want to lose the pier that we approved. But I'm also, disturbed. I've been backed into this corner.
One of the things that, and I appreciate you as a contractor understanding the nature of this situation and trying to work with us. But when it comes to the piping, salt is corrosive. So I'm not looking to just put something in there because just for sure as you do that, it's not gonna happen right away, but it's gonna happen and we may end up paying more money. So whatever we put in terms of where salt water or the salt air is exposed to it, if it has to be stainless steel or whatever, we need to look at, not having an additional cost to the city later on because we're trying to do things. So, but I like your idea, Vice Mayor, of itemizing, what do we get for this option, this option, this option, So that would be greatly appreciated. Thank you once again, sir.
So we're tabling the item. Is that right?
I don't know if we have a time certain. Is 2 weeks enough? My recommendation, the technical term would be defer it to the next meeting. You table
Well,
it.
if we could find $400,000 in 8 hours today, I think we can do that in 2 weeks. So yeah.
Yes, sir.
Make a motion to defer this item till the next commission meeting.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.
We are now at comments by administration and legal. On one comment tonight, just a reminder to the commission that the county will be considering the ordinance on the zoning ordinance regarding the landfill height limitations. The latest information we got was first reading was 10/22 with the final public hearing on November 12th. Those are the dates before the county commission on the landfill height limitation ordinance or the increase of those height limitations. So I just wanted to point that out.
And that's not a public hearing for us to speak at?
The second one is, they've represented that as a public hearing. I'm not sure how they're going to handle first reading, if they're just going to be read the title into the record and take comment or not.
Okay.
But certainly on the 12th, November 12th would be the public hearing. That's the latest information we have from the county attorney's office.
Mayor and Commissioners, the only comment I had is to report that our emergency management team, directors, staff, and everyone got prepared for the storm. There were no significant impacts here, but it served as a training opportunity for us in terms of preparation and communication and doing various assessments. Incidentally, there were no reports of electric outages. Traditionally, we receive calls about along Oceanway Boulevard about outages. So I don't know if that's related to the work that you have done in terms of the underground and utilities. Some of the things that we had to cancel were the community appearance board meeting. We rescheduled the planning and zoning board meeting that's rescheduled to this Thursday. The fall festival we had to cancel. Actually, the pumpkins that were ordered never arrived until Sunday, at least some of them. So those we will be distributing at the Movies in the Park. That's scheduled for Friday, October 18th, and that's at Villages of Hillsborough. And that pumpkin pickup starts at 5. Movies actually starts at 7. Thank you.
You're now at City Commission business. Item 19 is a discussion regarding artificial turf.
Mayor, Commissioner Hudak had asked for discussion on this, and staff, if we ask staff to do, just get some information and present it to assist in the discussion.
All right. Good evening again. Eric Power, Director of Plan Development Services for the City of Deerfield Beach. So, yes, so Commissioner Hudak has asked for a presentation on artificial turf and how it's regulated within the City of Deerfield Beach and how it's regulated elsewhere. Staff has compiled this information as a general conversation for commission. So I want to go through some facts of what artificial turf is. And artificial turf is a synthetic fabric. Sometimes it's called synthetic turf. Older times were like astroturf, but today you call it either artificial turf or synthetic turf. Of course, it's designed to replicate the appearance of sod or grass, but it is not a living material. It does not support living material either above or below its surface. Artificial turf is permeable. Water does flow through it. This is a common misconception between those who want or install artificial turf and say municipalities or, government agencies. There's no argument that artificial turf is permeable. The issue is that it is not impervious by the definition of landscape code, which I'll discuss again in a moment. Artificial turf is used in landscape, but is not technically landscape. So it is used in landscape as landscape material, but is not defined as landscape. And at no time under any circumstance is artificial turf permitted in any city-owned swale or right-of-way, and that is still the case for any municipality which does permit artificial turf in the front yard. At no time under any situation is artificial turf allowed on public property or in a swale. So how is it defined in city code? It's defined a few different ways. So section 98.3 definitions defines landscape. I'm just going to read these. Landscape area or green space means permeable, right? Drains, area or areas as required by this article, including beautification strips consisting of those materials such as not but limited to hedges, trees, greens, planting, ground cover, sodded grassed areas, planted floral installations, all of which must be composed of natural living plantings, only as distinguished from artificial manufactured planting reproductions. The use of the word landscape area or green space individually shall have the same meaning as defined here. We have another definition in landscape requirements, which again says landscape or landscaping when used as a noun. This term shall mean living plant materials such as grasses, ground cover, shrubs, vines, trees, or palms, and non-living durable materials commonly used in environmental design, such as but not limited to walls and fence aesthetic grading or mounding, but excluding pavers, paving, artificial turf, turf block, rocks, and structures. And then finally, we have another definition of as open space, and just as open space, all pervious landscape planting areas for the site. So again, it is discussed in code as a material that can be in landscape, but it is clearly separated from what would be living or landscape material in the same way that rocks or other things might be. Again, how is it defined further? The state of Florida adopted a project called Florida Friendly. It replaced what you might have referred to as Xeriscape. When Xeriscape originally came out, it was a way for Floridians to reduce water capacity and efficiency, to use proper materials, native landscaping. So Florida Friendly was adopted by the city in 2019. All municipalities have been required to adopt Florida Friendly, which we've had. And Florida Friendly has 9 principles. I'm not going to go into detail on these principles, but I will mention that H and I are reduce stormwater runoff and protect the waterfront. And I'm going to bring up those 2 items just a little bit later. Again, how is it defined further? So Florida Friendly does have a statement on artificial turf, and it does not consider artificial turf to be a Florida Friendly product. Synthetic surfaces have substantially higher surface temperatures than natural turf grasses, which destroy beneficial microbes in the soil. Artificial turf can contribute to the heat island effect and does not provide habitat for wildlife or beneficial insects. So, this sentence basically relates to how our code is already written, in that it is, yes, part of the landscape, but it is not landscaping, and it's not considered a Florida-friendly product. Some of you may remember this, but in 2009, there was an ordinance that was put into place specifically to prohibit artificial turf in the front yard. And that code, which is no longer in our code now, and I'll explain why in a second, but that code gave a 5-year exemption for anyone who had artificial turf in their front yard to replace it by that time frame. So that would have been 2014. When we redid the comprehensive code amendment for landscape in 2019, this section was removed. It was no longer applicable because now it's part of the definition where it's not permitted. But those you may recall, back in 2009, the city commission did formally prohibit artificial turf in the front yard. Just furthermore, how it's defined additional code sections, for the comprehensive plan being a large document we kind of just talked about a little while ago with the CIE, but the conservation comprehensive plan and the climate resiliency section of the comprehensive plan, of course, encourage preservation of green space, Florida-friendly principles, and stormwater management. This is a typical detail that we give to residents when they ask questions about their driveways. And some of the things that we like to point out is that driveways in Deerfield Beach can be up to 2 feet from the side property line. Regular residential roadways can actually have 2 entrances. They can have circular driveways. And if you're on a corner lot, you're allowed to have up to 3 driveways. 75% of your required front yard is allowed to be a parking or a paved surface. That is an impervious area. So further discussion, how is it regulated in Deerfield Beach? Artificial turf is not living or considered landscape as defined by the code. I think we've discussed that enough. And therefore is prohibited in areas required to be landscaped. And this is where we create the distinction of where it is permitted and where it is not permitted, because it's not permitted in an area that's required. So by default, that means it can be in an area as long as you have the minimum requirement standards. So you are allowed to have artificial turf in your rear and side yards, provided that you still meet your minimum standards. You are allowed to have artificial turf in your driveway as a decorative element because your driveway is already an impervious area. So some people like it as a decorative element. You're allowed to have it in areas, again, as long as you have the minimum requirements. So we see and we allow artificial turf to sometimes be in the middle part of a circular driveway. A lot of times this becomes an unmanageable area for landscape. So there are times where it is permitted in that area, provided that they already meet the minimum standards. And this circular area is still kind of considered part of the circular driveway as part of the entire impervious area that's already been calculated. And many people don't know, but we have approved artificial turf in certain situations where we recognize that it may not be manageable. So here's just an example in front of the garage. There are small strips of artificial turf in front of the garage, which was approved as part of its original plan. This is another detail that we offer to our residents to sort of explain information on landscaping. And so just to further clarify as an example, this is the front of a house where it is not permitted in the front yard or swale. It can be permitted in the side and rear yards, and it's not permitted within a 2-foot setback of the rear or side yard. And of course, it can be allowed in a driveway. So getting to some of the information that the city did, we did evaluate all the municipalities in Broward County. There are 2 columns here I want to point out. Hillsborough Beach and Lighthouse Point are the only 2 cities that do permit artificial turf in the front yard with a permit. They require a very long list of items that are needed in order to approve it. The other part I want to point out is the minimum landscape area. So when I was speaking a moment ago to the 75% allowance of driveways in the front yard, and when we talk about minimum landscape areas, it's very important to note that Deerfield Beach allows the least amount of minimum landscaping for any municipality in Broward County. So just as a quick example, for Lighthouse Point, which allows front yard artificial turf, they have a 25% requirement for landscape, whereas we only have a 15%. And that reason is because we, again, have allowances of 75% of a front yard for driveway. Now that is an older section of code. It's not something that I've touched in my time here. I kind of believe that it's because we're a boating community. We've allowed areas for boats in the past, or we've allowed circular driveways and multiple cars and things of that nature. But we do, again, just pointing out, have the least requirements for minimum landscape area. So allowing artificial turf in the front yard would further reduce that minimum requirement. Getting to some more important issues of why artificial turf can be a hindrance in the front yard, I want to talk about what a biome is. So mostly the purpose in South Florida of why you have sod in your front yard or why you have a swale in the front of your home is for stormwater retention. It's designed that way. Water in the front of your home is designed to slope either to a street or to a swale. Landscape can retain water, which helps saturating the stormwater system. And it is possible that microbes and sand in the living environment exist in soil and grass actually feed on the materials, the soils and the metals, the things that we find to be dangerous in our water system. You know, the living materials of landscaping and the microbes that are underneath those living materials, they actually feed on those products. So they sort of pre-treat the water before it actually goes down into our system, which is a beneficial issue. Additionally, sod can hold and retain water better than artificial turf can. So when the water flows through artificial turf, it actually can flow faster and can get into our stormwater system faster. And of course, we've just had conversations about issues with drainage and issues with 8th Avenue, and these things, when water goes through the system fast, it goes right into our stormwater retention areas, it goes right into our drains, and it can actually make flooding worse. I guess what I just mentioned. So back to stormwater runoff. Artificial turf is designed for runoff, just like pavement. You're intended like hose down areas. So the first a few inches of water will actually be hosed off in a similar way. These are just two graphics that we've used in the past to inform residents about the sort of the harms of materials that can get into your system. So, you have a dirty roof, you've just done an oil change in your driveway, or you've washed your car, or your dog has pooped in the yard, and it rains, right? That rainwater carries those nutrients, those chemicals, off your property into the swale, into the storm system, which can further hinder our storm system or further, pollute our waterways. Again, this is just a detail from our landscape code about reducing stormwater runoff and how we actively try to encourage keeping water on site for properties so that we do not have flooding and drainage issues. And just showing you one more detail here about artificial turf. Artificial turf is designed underneath the layer for either to have a rock-based system or some type of wood or concrete-based system. So when you walk on it, it stays hard surfaced, and there's no living material underneath that. Okay, so water drains through that rock surface in a very quick way. Whereas when you have a natural system, you have a soil and a sod system, water is held in a longer time in the ground, and that's a benefit to the stormwater runoff issue. So in conclusion, there's multiple conclusions made from this. Artificial turf does not serve any real purpose other than an aesthetic element. It is not fit for the entirety of all housing systems in the city of Deerfield Beach. I think it's a very important reminder. Going back to the display that the list of cities that I showed you, Lighthouse Point and Hillsborough Point, they have a monoculture of homes. They have multi-million-dollar homes that are typically along a waterway. The city of Deerfield Beach has an entirely different set of home structures throughout the entirety of the city. We have about 54,000 homes in Deerfield Beach. Combined, there's about 7,000 homes between Lighthouse Point and Hillsborough Beach. And the home types in those two cities are very similar to each other. And I recognize that we have those types of homes here in Deerfield as well, but we're talking about a code change that impacts the entirety of the city and how this might occur for other single-family homes throughout the city. Artificial turf does have an environmental impact. It does not create habitat. It does not improve groundwater recharge. It's hotter than grass and other landscape materials, which add to the heat island effect, and it can generate higher runoff into the stormwater system. Artificial turf does not last forever. It typically can last somewhere between 6 and 10 years in South Florida's environment. It needs constant maintenance, which I think is honestly a hidden cost that most people don't recognize when talking about artificial turf. You have to get the product and you have to maintain the product so that it maintains that color. Dog waste and urine can stain it. You have to wash it. You have to, scrub it. There can be mold and mildew and things like that can also occur. And so there is a material of time and energy that does need to happen. Code compliance would have to constantly be enforcing these issues. One of the larger concerns that staff has is that if this was permitted by the commission, that we would have to regulate this in a way that we had not fully recognized or realized the time, cost, and value that would go to staff time and code compliance time to monitor these issues. Again, being such a much larger city than Lighthouse Point and Hillsborough Beach. Additional conclusions. As few municipalities permit artificial turf in the front yard, and as the inclusion in the front yard is shown to be detrimental to the environment, stormwater management, staff recommends the continued prohibition to not permit artificial turf in the front yard or swale. If commission so chooses, staff will draft an amendment to land development code further defining artificial turf and its permitted locations in rear or side yard setbacks and other restrictions. And I want to say that we do recognize that our code does not specifically tell you where artificial turf can go. We do say it's sort of, well, here you meet these minimum requirements, it can be elsewhere. It's not specifically listed in our code. There are other municipalities that they still prohibit artificial turf in their front yard, but they do further define where it can be. So if it's commission's choosing, we can still bring items forward to commission to amend the code for those types of things. And then finally, I believe that commission really should consider sort of a slippery slope in this situation. If we're going to allow it, in single-family zoning districts, will there be requests to allow it in multifamily zoning districts? Will there be a request to allow it in commercial and industrial districts? And how that might impact the city in the future. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Go ahead, Commissioner Hudak.
Thank you. Couple of quick questions. In one part of your presentation, you said it's you're allowed to put it in the front, and you showed in a circular driveway. And then in the other part of your presentation, you said it's not allowed to be in the front.
What I said was that we consider the circular part of the driveway to be the total area of your driveway. So you get 75% of your front yard can be driveway, and all of it is impervious. So we can allow the circular half circle landscape area for a circular driveway to also be considered impervious, provided that you meet your minimum requirements elsewhere.
Okay, and go to the second part where you said it's not allowed in the front.
So it is not allowed in the front yard by our code to meet the minimum landscape requirements.
Okay, I don't consider it landscape either, and I don't want to change the landscape code. I think you've been very, very liberal at 15%. I don't want it in the swales either. But if here you're considering it basically the same thing as a paver, why can't you consider it similar to a paver in the other circumstances? That's what I don't understand.
Because this particular area, and I'll go back to like this photograph as well. The landscape strips that you see in this image, they're part of the impervious area of the driveway.
Okay.
So we can allow the half circle to also be considered part of the impervious area of the driveway.
Got it.
Provided that, like, the front yard, the rest of the front yard meets the minimum landscape requirements.
Now, in the slide where it's not allowed in the front, why is it not allowed in the front in that slide? There's another slide.
This is,
if you go further down.
yeah, I know. This is just a typical.
This one here.
Yeah,
Why
this is
is
just,
if you're already meeting the 15%, why are you not allowing it in the front?
this is just a typical detail that we provide to our residents to sort of give examples for landscaping locations. So this doesn't have a circular driveway or the other locations. As long as you can meet the minimum standards.
Right, which is more than 15% of that is landscape.
In this particular situation, as long as you can meet the minimum
Right.
standards.
So if more than 15% of this front yard is landscape, why is artificial turf not allowed to be the part closest to the home? I just picked a spot.
Right.
But
so
that's what I don't
This is
understand.
a typical detail. This is not every example. But if you can meet the minimum landscape standards of 75%, I'm sorry, of 15%, then you can have other non-living materials in your yard, such as artificial turf,
So this
rocks.
person could have pavers, this person could have artificial turf.
If you are.
Right, I mean, that
Right.
diagram that you're showing,
I would just say this is not a typical diagram of what you might see in the city, but yes, the answer is yes, as long as you can
Okay.
meet the minimum requirements.
And that's, I guess, where my confusion is, because every time I hear a resident, and this came from residents who have put it in the area, and they're getting code violations. And the standard answer is, well, you can put it in the backyard, but you can't put it in the front.
I would not agree that's the standard answer.
Okay.
But I would say that in some situations that we've had where people have replaced all of their front yard with artificial turf, they're gonna be cited.
I have no issues with that. You have your 15% standard.
Right.
And I think it needs to be maintained. I mean, I think should be 25%, but that's just me speaking up here. If residents are allowed to if you don't want this monstrosity of a driveway, but as opposed to having a paver, you want to put artificial turf, then you're allowed to do that.
Yeah, I'll go back to the definition real quick just to say that. Sorry, 1 second.
I mean, I want to treat it like a paver. If you're allowed to put a paver there, you should be able to put artificial turf there. And I know
Right,
the
so
challenges with artificial turf. I know it's expensive. I know it only lasts 10 years. I got all of that stuff. I still think we should include our standards if they're going to put it in there.
if you read here in 9880, the area that's highlighted says, but excluding pavers, paving, artificial turf, turf block, rocks, and structures. So all of those things would be counted in the same way, right?
Okay.
So your front yard, your driveway, artificial turf, a rock bed, they are all counted in the same way as just being non-living material that could be in a landscape area, but not counted towards your minimum landscape requirements.
So as long as I've got 15% of my front yard that has trees and landscape,
Well, it's 50% of your total area of your home, not just the front yard. It's 15% of the total area of your home. We allow it. So if you,
so if I had a tropical forest in my entire backyard, I can put artificial grass
it
in the front yard?
depends on that particular home. I mean, the answer could be yes.
Okay, because that's not what I've been hearing. And if that is true,
I've never once seen that situation,
I'm not
but I'm
saying
just saying.
it is. I'm just generalizing
Mhm.
on, on the situations that I've heard. Like I said, of residents who have put it in there and now they're told you got to pull it out. And, we've talked about numerous of them. Anthony and I have worked on one as well. So if that's the case, I mean, if we're treating it like a paver, if you can have a paver there, you could have artificial turf there.
Right, that's what the code says.
Okay, I just want to make sure that we're standard with that process then. I really am. I have nothing else. If that's the case, that's enlightening to me. Because everything that the residents have been telling me is that you can't have artificial turf in the front yard. But if you're treating it like a paver, then that's fine.
Right. So if you're going to maximize your driveway, which
Well,
in some of the
let's just
situations
say you
like,
have a golf cart as opposed to a car, and as opposed to maximizing your driveway with pavers, you want to do it artificial turf. You can.
as long as you meet your minimum requirements, right?
Okay, I'm fine with that then.
That's what I said. I think that because our code is silent in the way it's regarded, right? In the same way that you can have artificial turf in the landscaping areas, if commission wanted, we could provide additional direction in our code. We can provide additional language in our code, but that in the way in which Lighthouse Point or Hillsborough Beach allow artificial turf in their front yard to essentially be entirely in their front yard, which is what those permits are for, we would recommend that you do not do that.
Well, I like their minimum standards. If someone is going to go ahead and install it in 65% of their front yard, I think we should have some kind of standards. I mean, if 20% of their yard is landscape, then the other 80% could be artificial turf. And if that's the case, then we should have a procedure and a policy to make sure that it's installed properly, to make sure that it's of the quality that we want, to make sure that they're going to maintain it. Because we all know after 10 years or so, you got to rip it up and you got to put in a new one. There are a lot of people who can't afford that. That's their choice though.
Yes, that would be their choice.
But I think if you're telling me that 85% of my front yard can be artificial turf.
No, I'm not telling you that. Not at all. You're definitely getting some numbers messed up here.
Of it
No.
is landscape.
You're missing some numbers,
Okay,
but that is not what I'm telling you.
okay. But if you're telling me that it's allowable in the front yards, as opposed to putting pavers, I could put artificial turf. I think then we need to give our residents some direction.
Okay.
On how they do it. That's my opinion. I'd love to hear the rest of the commission.
Vice Mayor Drosky.
I think the clarification is probably a good idea to prevent the questions that we're getting here tonight so that we can better inform the residents, what they can and cannot do with respect to the artificial turf. I'm going to steal a line from the mayor because he says that he loves to being up here so long with longevity. He has all this information. Well, he's going to remember this too, as do I. And this all came about in the 2009 timeframe because I was part of the movement as a private citizen to prohibit artificial turf because there was a home in the gates of Hillsborough that had artificial turf in the front yard. and it looked like the worst putting green you have seen in your entire life. It wasn't even that good. I don't even know how to describe how
Looked like a failed putt course.
it was horrible. And the neighbors, it was not even my association, but it was in my district at the time. And the neighbors were having an absolute fit over it. And so doing some research back at that particular time, there is a scholarly article. I still have it from the 2009 timeframe that talks about the benefits or lack thereof of artificial turf. It's a scholarly article published by the University of Florida. And so that was one of the reasons that the prohibition went into effect. And then in 2019, the commission approved the Florida friendly standards, which does not incorporate artificial turf. And in fact, I saw the date tonight. So March 17, 2009 was the prohibition. Given that time frame, that's probably Mayor Gans's first meeting as commissioner.
Third. It was literally third.
It was very early on. So there's a whole reason that this happened, because the residents of the city did not want to see, basically this ugly looking artificial turf in the front yards. But the technology over time has improved. It does not look like the old, putt carpets from before. The technology has definitely improved. And it looks, sometimes you can't even tell that it's artificial turf at this particular point. But I don't know, and I haven't had the opportunity to do the research to determine whether the science has changed. The technology has definitely changed since 2009, but I don't know that the science behind artificial turf and the detriments to it has changed. And that was part of Mr. Power presentation tonight. So if there was a appetite for the commission to approve artificial turf, I'd really want to do that research. But I think the way that it's written now and the requirements that we have, we're very liberal in our landscape area compared to our sister cities. I don't know that a change is needed, because from what I'm hearing from Commissioner Hudak, who sponsored this tonight, I think Mr. Powers satisfied your question. But I mean, it's your item tonight. But I just wanted to give some background of having sat up here long enough to know where this came from and why we have it and why we don't want to go backwards.
Commissioner Hudak.
Thank you. I would like to see some clarification on the installation. If someone is going to install it, I think we need to give them some guidelines on what we expect. Like I said, the last thing you want is a concrete slab with indoor-outdoor carpet slapped on top of it. And that's probably what started all this back in 2009.
Minus the slab, yes.
Minus the slab. There you go. So I think we should provide them with some guidelines on the quality of the product. Hey, it's got to be, a 10-year product. You want to do it, that's fine, but it's going to be a product that's going to last 10 years. The upkeep and the installation process. I think it's time that we have something so that we can give them some guidelines. I really would like to see that put forth.
Yeah. But the only 2 cents I'll say about this is 2009 was a long time ago, and I was much younger. But I was much younger before this meeting started too. But the technology's obviously changed, and I want to make sure that we're keeping that in mind. If we make a revision, I would like us to provide some common sense flexibility is what I'd like. Maybe it's a matter, and I'm just throwing this out, I'm not saying this is the answer, but rather than a coverage of 15%, but if you want in your front yard, you want to do that, now you go from a 25%. You make some changes. I agree with you. There needs to be a certain standard also. You can't just have this, indoor outdoor carpeting in the front yard or anywhere. So yeah, if we make changes, those are some things that I'd like to have, let's update to the times. Let's take a look at that. One of the big things back then, we also talked about the fact is just water usage. We haven't had that problem in a really long time, but I've been here long enough to remember when we had water shortages,
Yep.
when we had to go, Monday's your day, Thursday's your day. That's what you've got. This does create that. We have that. We have some limited coverage. You're right. We are the lowest in Broward County. I understand that. I'm open-minded to be a little more flexible. to a point of common sense. I don't want us to go, look, we're so by the book. I really hate hearing my own voice up here. There's a reason. But if we could kind of maybe keep that in mind, if we decide to make a change, that's what I'd like to see. So that's my 2 cents on it. Okay.
We are now at Mayor and City Commission comments.
District 1,
No comment.
District 2.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to address the hurricanes that are part of Florida and actually some other states, North Carolina, Georgia, went through Helene and Milton. But specifically addressing what we had here in Florida, one of the most challenging situations when we see a hurricane coming, especially for elected officials, is what is the communication level? And I just want to thank Mr. McHugh because I was updated and there was a constant flow of information. Additionally, I'd like to thank Rodney Brimlow. There were some safety issues and challenges that I had. If he was not in a meeting, he would always give me a call and he would let me know what was going on and whatever concerns that I had in safety. And see, and the reason I'm mentioning that, you know, as we go forward in looking at who we may eventually have as a city manager, you won't see them in a stress situation like this. We had a unique situation and I was looking and I didn't say anything, you know, to them, but I was watching how they handle the crisis. I don't know about you guys, but I felt like I was being updated. There was a flow of information, and I really appreciate that because that flow of information I needed because I was able to tell my constituency. I was able to convey some things to Mr. Brimlow of grave concern, and he was able to address those things. So I just want to thank you guys for what you did. Thank you very much. That flow of information was important. As I said, I had people calling me and challenging me with questions, but guess what? It ended up in a good situation because I had information that I could give back to them. And if I didn't get it right away, I ended up getting it. I was just talking to, Mr. Brimlow today about a situation that's actually really not the city problem, but he was able to provide the direction, and I know that it's going to travel. So I'm glad that in crisis situation, when your constituency is where we didn't know what Helene was going to do, we didn't know what Milton was going to do, and that thing could have turned one way or the other, and we could have been devastated. So what's the most important thing? Communication. And I felt like we had that. So thank you. I appreciate that. And that's it for me, Mayor.
Thank you. District 3.
Yes. Hi, I'm finally hooked up correctly. District 3, my club and I, in a nonpartisan fashion, registered or helped check the registration for over 500 citizens of Deerfield Beach in the last few months. I wanted to thank the city managers, assistant managers, etc., for allowing us to use the lobby until it was being under construction, and then North Broward Hospital allowed us to use the lobby. And we were able to check and help people make sure they could vote. In 3 weeks, we're going to have a new president, one way or another. If you don't vote, shame on you. You take what you get, and then you have nothing to say because you didn't bother. It's your life. It's our country. If you love it, we didn't put voting in the Constitution and amendments through the years so you could sit home and watch football. Take part in your government. It's important. That's all I have.
Thank you. District 4.
Thank you. I have two things tonight. One, I want to reiterate again and just make it loud and clear that it looks like the county commission is going to schedule the meeting where the public is able to speak regarding Monarch Hill on November 12th. They always like to move the goalposts on us, so it's a potential that date could change. But if that date goes forward, Mr. City Manager, I would like to make sure that we have buses available again to take residents down to that meeting to make sure that we are loud and clear when that meeting comes forward. So let's monitor that date. And if that is the date, to make sure that we have transportation arranged for residents from Deerfield that want to go down to downtown Fort Lauderdale to the commission meeting. And also to ensure that if it's a time certain that we're, aware of that, if it's, 10 o'clock in the morning or 3 o'clock in the afternoon, whatever, that we're aware of that. So we don't have residents there too early or too late. The other item I have is that I attended last week the workshop sponsored by the city. Commissioner Hudak was there as well regarding the Southeast 8th Avenue stormwater project. And there was a good amount of folks in the crowd that night and expressing their displeasure with the project. So I just want to make sure, Mr. City Manager, that the comments that came out of that meeting, that we're following up, that we're doing everything that we can to alleviate the inconvenience to the residents, and that we're working with the contractor to clean up the trash, get rid of some of these ponding issues with the water, the excess materials that don't need to be there on site, that those issues are being addressed, because it was pretty clear from the sentiment of the residents that night that they're not happy. The project has not been managed well at all, and that we need to get that back on track. So I just want to make sure that we're following up from the needs of that particular meeting. And those were my two items tonight, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for talking about Mount Trashmore. I want to make sure that staff is prepared for that we have a few strategy sessions, and we have our talking points and all the full data that we need to have regarding that meeting. It's extraordinarily important. So let's make sure that we are proactive and we're prepared for that meeting. I want to make a suggestion, and I'm going to share it with the commission, but I will bring it up to the people that serve in the CRA as well, because it's really a CRA item. So if you know anybody who serves in the CRA, get the word out to them. But I want to make a suggestion so we don't lose some time. We talked about freebie, and we talked about how, we don't have an apples to apples in how we're doing when we look at other cities and how they're using it, because we've limited ourselves with the amount of hours that we have. A suggestion that you can take back to the CRA members to think about, meaning us, is that it's a 2-year pilot program. We're at 25% of the way into this. If we cut off the back end of it and move that money rather than spending extra money, we take the money that we've got budgeted for it, move it to the front so we can expand the hours now and do that. And that way we can get a full idea of if we had the right expanded hours compared to what other cities, so we can look at it. We can say, look, rather than go another year and a half of this, let's only do another year of it, but do it with the full hours. That gives us a really good idea and a gauge of where we need to be. I don't know if that makes sense to everyone, but it's the same money. We just shorten the contract and we move all that money to the front end of it so we can see where the hours go. I did take freebie this weekend, and talking to the driver was interesting. Number one with a bullet, he said, with locations they go to, is Publix over there in CRA. Where do the majority of the people come from that he drives? Are Century Village and Dixie Highway, right off Dixie Highway. So when we look at those heat maps, we see kind of general areas. Keep in mind that, it looks like it's all the cove and everything. This isn't just about partying. This is about getting people to places they need to go for vital services. It's a way of doing that. So if we front end load this a little bit differently and look at it differently, it's just consideration for the CRA board, but at least since we all serve on the CRA, we can consider this and look at it. Tonight's meeting is disappointing. with the issue regarding the pier. We had the stormwater project that's been an absolute failure. We have the pier project that right now is disappointing, and I'm not going to rehash everything. I look at the condition of the median project on Hillsborough that our city employees allowed to get in the condition that it is. That is a lack of care. That's a lack of oversight, and it's a lack of maybe just awareness. But there is no way it should look the way it does. This pier project, stormwater project, this is a lack of proper project management. I don't put this on Horace. He is new into that position, and whatever David left us with on this. But the bottom line is we have staff get paid a lot of money to do this, and they're not doing it right. We need to be reactive, we need to stop being reactive and be proactive. And we don't come into a meeting when in the end, we wasted all that time arguing about this, and it should have been pulled, because that's where we did. We didn't make a decision tonight. It should have been pulled if new information's coming in this morning and this afternoon. Get your ducks in a row. Just because it's on the agenda doesn't mean you can't pull it. Don't ever put something on the agenda that's at half-assed again, because I'll take care of the other half of your ass on that one, because I will chew it out. Unacceptable, unprofessional, and the money people are getting paid to do their job, and this is the kind of output we're getting, they need to be written up, they need to be reprimanded, or they need to be terminated, and it needs to happen, whether you're the interim city manager or not. This is unacceptable. That's all I have for tonight.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Meeting adjourned.